Good day, ladies and gents, wherever you may be around the world, and welcome to Splendid Isolation number 133. As always, I am going to start us off with a tune. Oh, for God's sake. No, what? Sorry, guys, I'm just dealing with something in the background here.
Go bind your sons to exile, to serve your captives need, to wait in heavy harness on flooded folk and wild. Your new gods, sullen peoples, have devil and have child. Take up the white man's burden, impatience to abide, to veil the threats of terror and check the show of pride. By hopeless speech and simple, 100 times made plain, you seek another's profit and work another's gain. Take up the white man's burden, savage wars of peace, fill full the mouth of famine, and bid the sickness cease. And when your goal is nearest, the end for others sought, what's love that Eden for thee, bring all your hopes to loss. Take up the white man's burden, not tawdry rule of kings, but toil of serf and sweeper, the tale of common things. The ports ye shall not enter, the roads ye shall not tread. Go make them with your living, and mark them with your dead. Take up the white man's burden, and reap his soul's reward. The blame of those ye better, the hate of those ye guard. The cry of those ye humor, are slowly towards the light. Why brought ye us from bondage, our loved Egyptian guys? Take up the white man's burden, ye dare not stoop to less, nor call too loud on freedom to cloak your weariness. By all ye cry or whisper, by all ye leave or do, the silent, sullen people shall weigh your gods and you. Take up the white man's burden, have done with childish days, the lightly proffered laurel, the easy young grudge praise. Dost thou to search your manhood through all of thankless years, nor ends with dear bought wisdom, the judgment joy of peers. Take off the white man's burden through all of endless years.
And that was, of course, the excellent Chris Gard. Do go and check out his channel. How are you going, Mitch? If you're back.
Same old, same old.
As always. We do have another guest joining us this evening later on. AI is going to join us, who's been on the show several times. Let me have a quick look at the chat here. Sonny Jim, how you going? Michael K, 19th Century fan, how you going? Vultra, Titus, and Australian, good day, guys. Yeah, people earlier were asking me what time it is, and it's 6:09 a.m. on Sunday morning where I am. So there you go. Subjects for this week. I was talking to Mitch before we went live, and one of the things I think we ought to highlight is the constant fear porn that people like the Bias Brainwashing Corporation are putting out every single day on their weather forecasts. You know, you've all seen these red and purple maps, etc., which they're using these days for temperatures, which are perfectly normal, basically. They're no different to temperatures 10 or 20 years ago, as Mitch was saying to me before we went live. What's your view on this, Mitch?
I mean, this is a debate which this sort of topic is not something I'm massively invested in compared to others, because it's like loads of data, sort of talking points. But yeah, I mean, 10 years ago, you'd have, let's say, 28 degrees, which was presented just normal. Like just, a summer's day at 28 degrees. I mean, it's normal in a place like Germany, for example, never mind over here.
Yeah, now, I mean, look, Britain's got this Atlantic climate with the Gulf Stream and all the rest of it, and it's 28 degrees is like just a nice late July, August temperature. It's what you want on a summer. You know, that people who have holidays in the UK, which many people still do, they want weather like that, you know?
Yeah, I mean, 23 degrees over here, apparently it's like a cauldron over here where we're all boiling to death. Apparently.
And I mean, they're lying about these temperatures anyway. You know, they take the temperatures where they're highest. You know, they'll literally take them on airport runways when a jet's just taken off and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I noticed in America, for example, they were taking temperatures. They were saying these were sea temperatures off the American coast, but they were actually taken in a very hot river. You know, where the river actually goes into the sea and it's very shallow, so naturally the water temperature goes way up. They weren't actual sea temperatures at all.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at the dishonesty, especially when you consider that I don't know what his name is, that UN bloke who's literally bollocking everyone. Like, you dumb meat sacks, our planet is boiling because of you. Meanwhile, you take the UK, for example, but very much make up like 1% of global emissions. Why are we talking?
Not even that now. And even if we completely reduce them to zero, you know, the net zero bullshit, it's going to make no difference to world temperatures whatsoever. But that 1% reduction in British emissions.
Well, the thing is, the net zero stuff, it won't work anyway, because so from the time where mining copper was first operated to today, it's like 600 million tons of copper. You would need the same amount of copper in the next 7 years to get the net zero target in 2030.
I just think they're going to use this, and it's very noticeable how similar the propaganda around this is to the stuff they used during the China virus. They're going to use this stuff to push their 15-minute cities which, by the way, you're going to get more and more restrictions about going further than that 15 minutes. You can bet your bottom dollar on that. They're going to be pushing for ordinary people not to be able to just jump on an aeroplane and go to Greece or Spain or wherever they want to go for their holidays. Of course, this will not happen to the elites. No. They'll continue taking their private jets all over the place, but they will try and stop ordinary, average people from going overseas on holidays and this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm gonna press exit out on that because that's sort of a bread and circus that we used to ply off most working class people with. If you
I
take
don't
away
know,
the
mate.
holidays, what stops them from rebelling? Like even
Oh, look,
medieval.
I'm not saying they will totally take them away, but what they will do is they'll bring in something like, oh, you can only take. First of all, it will be you can only take 6 flights a year, and then it will be 4, and then it will be 2. That's my own opinion of what they'll try and do.
I mean, what your average working class bloke? He has what one holiday, let's say to Spain in Tenerife once a year, and then what? I mean, perhaps he might have a holiday, a second one in Cornwall or down Breen or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean,
but that's how they'll get away with it, Mitch. You see, because as I said, they'll bring it in initially and they'll say, "Oh, you can only take 6 flights a year," and most people won't concern themselves with that because most people don't take 6 flights a year. But then they'll reduce it to 4, then they'll reduce it to 2. And when they reduce it to 2, it will start to impact people, particularly like if you're a Brit, for example, you very, very often have relatives in Australia or New Zealand or Canada or even South Africa or what have you. And a lot of those people will want to fly out and see their relatives and stuff, and they won't be able to when you can only take 2 flights a year, or they'll have the choice of doing that or taking their family holiday.
okay, but my point is, let's say, my generation, yeah, they're bloody hopeless around this topic. But let's say someone older, let's say someone around the age of 40 upwards, they don't really buy into this as much because they've just, I mean, since the 80s or late 70s when they found out, I should say, with the plants boiling, they've just been telling time and time again, oh, the ice caps are all going to melt, or this is going to happen, like, oh, Guam is going to be subsumed by a tsunami or something, and it just never happened. I don't see how, with the China virus, yeah, it worked because everyone fears a disease, especially one we don't fully understand because the media did a lot of BS about it. But climate change,
Even though it was little worse than a bad flu, basically, but
yeah, but you take climate change, it's not like a disease. It's not, it doesn't work the same way as a disease. So I don't see how climate change is going to be this be all and end all in terms of like forcing people to live like serfs.
I mean, where I live in Victoria, in Australia, the Victorian government has now said there will no longer be any gas in any Victorian homes. They've just announced that. And gas is more expensive than electricity at the moment, so no one's making a big fuss about it. But wait until electricity goes through the roof, which of course it will in due course, particularly if everybody is using it. And the whole thing with the renewable, in inverted commas, power is that it's not efficient and you cannot store it. And so therefore power becomes ever more expensive and unreliable.
Yeah, but that's the bit that gets me wrong is like, so this is where I'm going to disagree with the whole thing about, oh, well, this is all planned. I just think you wouldn't make life intentionally worse for your own population with a risk that they could rebel against you.
I don't know, man. I really don't know about that.
No, that's the thing. Like, you take your average normie. Now, they won't rebel, but if you take away their luxuries, you take away their living standards, what have they got to lose then? Because that's the whole thing.
I just think that the whole thing is aimed at deindustrialization of the West.
It's already happened,
well, to a large degree, it has, and that's why they're able to go this extra mile that they're going now with this climate change bullshit.
Okay, but that's a bit that gets me. I was just like, okay, you do know they can't take it too far though, because they run the risk of having the people rebel. Like if you take away
don't know that
people's
they do,
holidays,
mate. How you think people in the UK are going to rebel? Because I see no sign of it whatsoever. And if they do, how? In a completely disarmed population, or almost totally disarmed population, how are they going to rebel? I mean, you see the next election, I guarantee you, the next election, all that's going to happen is the Labour Party are going to get an enormous majority. Even though everyone with an iota of sense knows the Labour Party will be at least as bad as the Conservatives.
Again, my point is, right, they won't intentionally make people's lives worse because at the end of the day, you run the risk of getting people to rebel. That's the whole point. It's like, for example, you take the Middle Ages in Venice, you'd have carnivals set up to placate the serfs from ever rebelling.
Yeah, but those guys
Similar
actually, those guys lived there, Mitch. You know, the Doge of Venice lived in Venice, just like the Roman Emperor lived in Rome. Our current elites. Do you think Rishi Sunak gives a crap about Britain? Of course he doesn't. And if anything really bad happened to Britain, he'd move somewhere else. That's all he'd do. He doesn't regard himself as British. If he claims he does, he's a liar. And I'm not saying that because he's an Indian banker. I mean, you know, does Boris Johnson or Sir Keir Starmer really regard themselves as British? I'm by no means sure they do. Not in any meaningful way.
Yeah, in a very plastic sense, like all the values. Like,
I don't know. Those guys' ideas of British values are not mine, but there we go. I'm sure they're not yours either. But you know,
well, I mean that's the thing. I mean, if you deem your identity based on values, it means fuck all, basically, to me. Because I'm thinking it has to be something intrinsic of blood or culture or something like that.
Yeah, blood, culture, and history. That's what it is to me.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I can feel some sense of like, I don't know. I mean, I can feel some sense of a connection to, let's say, Germans, for example, because English, like we Anglos are Germanic. I will never feel a connection, however, to a Somali or an Indian or an Indonesian because those people is just genetically a completely different league.
And that is natural amongst human beings. It's totally natural, and not just amongst white human beings. It's natural amongst other human beings. You won't find people more racist than, say, the Chinese, for example.
I mean, the Chinese. I mean, I lost my train of thought, but yeah, I mean, it's like, you know, you have a Empire of Dust film where the Chinaman is just going, oh yeah, like these people are just completely hopeless.
This is a really good film for people in the chat. It's a documentary, and it's like you can find it on YouTube. It's called Empire of Dust, and it's about this Chinese guy in the Congo. Well worth a watch. And he just can't believe all the infrastructure that the Belgians built when the Congo was a Belgian colony that the Africans had just let go to waste and destruction. So, well worth a check.
Yeah, a slight correction. It keeps getting pretty deleted off YouTube.
So, you might find it on YouTube anyway. There's quite a lot of stuff on YouTube that gets deleted, and then someone else will put it up because you know the YouTube's trying to avoid copyright and all this kind of stuff. But Empire of Dust is well worth watching. Could I just answer Adam in the chat? He said there are 15-minute cities in the Netherlands, and at its core, it's about making cities walkable again. However, there are ulterior motives to some of the people implementing it. Yeah, you can bet your life on that. Somebody on Twitter put up a thing about Chinese 15-minute cities, and in Chinese 15-minute cities, you have these revolving barriers that I always remember they used to have for getting out of London Zoo when I was a child, and you can only get through them with your ID and all the rest of it. And you can bet your bottom dollar if they bring them in London and other parts of Britain, that is what will end up happening eventually. And you can also bet your bottom dollar that what they'll want is for you to have some sort of implant that you'll be able to flash a reader of some description. This is so bloody obvious now. AI, how are you going, mate?
Oh, I'm good, thank you. Thanks. I think having me on. Yeah, I'm great, thanks. How are you guys?
Not bad. We're just talking about the awful heavy propaganda that people like the Bias Brainwashing Corporation, etc., are putting out all the time about climate change and hot weather, when you know the temperatures are perfectly normal for this time of year, basically.
Yeah. And have you always noticed
it's fear porn? It's fear porn, basically.
It is. But when they talk about like historic records set, they always, if you actually look at their how they measure historic records, it always goes back to like 1850 or 1840 or something, but they won't go back to anything before sort of the Victorian period, even the medieval period. You know, wonder why.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. I would say there's a dude on YouTube called Tony Heller, Heller, who's excellent on climate change. Do go and subscribe to his channel on YouTube. He's very good and points out the hypocrisy and nonsense that these people are coming out with about climate change. I mean, Mitch and I of AI were talking before we started about this, and even if the climate alarmists are underestimating how bad things will be by like 100%, say things were twice as bad as the worst climate alarmist is claiming, it would make Britain have temperatures like Spain. Well, plenty of people live quite happily in Spain and Portugal, don't they? And I have to say, when I lived in Britain, I would quite liked it to have a climate like Spain or Portugal. But there we go. I'm a freeze ass. But yeah.
I mean, there have been points in Britain's history where even during the Roman period where temperatures would rise, and then of course you had like a period where the temperature would drop. One could argue one of the reasons why a lot of the tribes during that the Germanic migration period, or the movement of all these tribes, was down to a mix of the Hunnic Empire, but also the mini Ice Age going on. So it does happen, but at the same time, that there are a lot of there's quite a lot of Nobel, the sort of like Nobel Prize winning people who have. There's quite a few of them that have come out and sort of drawn skepticism on what, say, Just Stop Oil and others like that have been claiming. I mean, I remember what was it? Greta Thunberg, right back along when she was like when she first became this sort of household name, was saying that the world would be underwater. What was it? A few months ago.
Yep, and they were saying that the ice cap in the Arctic would melt. No signs of that happening whatsoever. Some of the glaciers in Greenland are even increasing now. It's bullshit, and it's done for it's done for nefarious purposes. It's not being done for any real reason. China is building over 100 coal-fired power stations as we speak. So what difference does Britain, which already has very low emissions, Britain going to net zero will make no difference whatsoever on a global scale. Same thing with Australia, because there's not enough people here.
Yeah, it's also worth noting how in Scotland that literally fell, 16 million trees for the sake of wind farms.
Oh, thanks, Mitch. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because I'd forgotten about that. Yeah, 16 million trees, which of course absorb CO2, cut down just in Scotland to put up eyesore wind farms that are not only eyesores, they're extremely inefficient, because of course if the wind's not blowing, they don't work. And also, they kill thousands upon thousands of birds every year.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, there have been several.
Let me just welcome Atom to the stream. How are you going, Atom?
All right. Yeah, I won't be on too long, but
that's all right. We're talking about the propaganda that they're all putting out at the moment on every weather forecast about global warming, and how there's obviously an agenda behind it, because the temperatures are not really any different.
Have you talked about? Well, it's fucking cold as stone down here. Have you talked about the Greece's climate change minister's remarks to the press?
No, please do tell us.
He said, well, he opened by saying a majority of the Greek forest fires after investigations have been done by human hands. Which
arson.
Arson. Yeah.
Well, and when he said that, I actually thought he was going to say, because of man-made climate change. But no, he did go on and say it's arson.
I will say, as somebody who was brought up on Cyprus, and was around Greek people, some of it may not have been arson. Some of it may have been them just going out camping in hills, smoking, shooting their guns off.
He did say he was including criminal negligence in that as well.
Oh, yeah, okay. So,
fair enough.
I mean, I have a theory that they're basically climate organizations having their own like goon squads flying out to roads and deliberately setting fires. Unless that is something because number one, the amount of coverage and media and work that was already like being put out there, look, it's obvious that there has been some preparation for this sort of story. And
I mean, just look at the
I-
maps. AI, look at the maps that they're using these days with the lurid red and purple colours. They do,
Yes.
why did they change the colours? Because the temperatures
exactly.
are not higher.
Exactly.
The people have on Twitter. I've seen people putting up maps, weather maps, like screenshots of BBC weather maps
Yes.
from 10 years ago and now, where the temperatures 10 years ago were higher, but the map is a perfectly normal green and brown colour rather than these reds and purples and what have you they're using today.
Yeah, and I also remember the flooding along the Rhineland a few years ago. Do you remember that? There was a flooding, wiped out a town and everything. In that instance, number one, it wasn't down to first it was climate change, then it was actually human error with the water management, and then you had a journalist who was caught out. She was what she did was she basically she went to this ruin, this town which had been caught up in it, and she manipulated objects in the scene to make it look like it was a greater disaster. I mean, effectively, a wall had collapsed, but she then moved I think she moved furniture and like clothing fabric into the shot and everything to make it look like that a house or it was a proper disaster area. So, I mean, yeah, these people. I mean, yes, it's completely fake, and dare I say, we've also seen this tactic play out in Ukraine. We have seen plenty of propaganda pieces showing incidents of I mean, I'm one that I think back of was that there were and I do remember watching this was these body bags right at the start of the conflict. People in body bags after bombing and fighting, and one of the guys in the body bags was like moving his hands and sitting upwards for like the BBC Cup back to the studio. I remember that clip very well, and if anyone can find it and share it or something, because that one was that one is one of my favorite ones. But
I haven't got that one specifically, but I think I've got a clip of one of them with his body bag unzipped and he's having a cigarette.
Oh, and hello, Arlo. Hello there. Good evening.
Yeah, no, it's so true. As you haven't been on for a couple of weeks, Adam, and did you have a first subject you wanted to talk about?
I'll be honest, no. I was thinking about some stuff earlier, but it's been such a long day; it's all kind of slipped my mind a bit.
No worries. Did you, AI or Mitch? Did you have a first subject you wanted to bring up?
Don't know if you heard about Forge. He's opened up database, I believe he called it, about people who got cancelled by the banks. So,
yeah.
So in other words, you can literally just put in your name for that, and Forge will log it down as, oh yeah, this person has been cancelled by the bank, and so on. Is railing on about the guy in charge of NatWest. So he's gone full on scorched earth on those.
Good. I mean, obviously, hopefully, if Farage can get enough people, there'd be some chance of some sort of class action being launched against the banks, which would be affordable if there are enough people who want to bring the case.
Yeah, he's already forced a resignation of that. What was her name? Dame Ellison Rose, I think her name was, or something like that. Who she literally fed the Sky News, I believe, or the BBC. Basically,
it was the BBC.
Yeah, she basically fed them like the story about Farage, but she did so in a very dishonest way, so as to like frame him up to frame him with like ridiculous talking points. You let your imagination go on that one. But yeah, she's had to go after apologising. He's now turned his aim towards NatWest. I won't be surprised at this point. on one hand, I remember the Duran. I haven't watched a video of them, but they're saying no, the road is open for political return for Farage. So
yeah. Davey 1602 in the chat was asking if Tony Heller was a Norwegian dude. No, he's not. He's an American, and he also likes dogs, which makes me like him twice. So there we
I've
go.
never watched any of his stuff. I'll be honest. With the climate stuff, it's such a complex subject anyway that you kind of have to take people on faith, and I don't really like to do that.
The good thing about Tony Heller on YouTube is that he's also on Twitter and what have you, but he's got a big channel on YouTube. And the good thing about him is he will actually bring out data from 100 and even 150 years ago to prove that these people are lying. And he'll even bring out stuff like NASA figures, because NASA today is totally taken over by the climate change freaks. But in the old days, they used to be quite accurate. And he'll even show how they've altered their own graphs.
But doesn't Tony Heller actually also believe in climate change, just not man-made climate change? Or am I getting his position wrong?
I think he believes that climate naturally changes all the time. And that, sometimes we go through various cycles. I mean, Mitch was saying before you came on, Adam, that we had the little ice age, for example.
Yeah.
So that in the early Victorian period, when Dickens was writing, the Thames would freeze over in winter. That was a natural thing. It had nothing to do with what the humans were doing. And solar flares and what have you have more to do with climate change than what the humans do.
I will say that the difference now is we seem to be getting a lot more temperamental weather than we used to.
I'm not sure that that's true. One of the things that Tony Heller looks at is he looks at extreme climate stuff, and actually most of it has been going down.
Oh yeah, I mean, like the actual like the number of hurricanes have gone down and stuff like that. Like the actual extreme weather patterns themselves have declined. But for example, like your chance of actually getting a hot summer versus just temperamental rain and shower in the UK seems to have gone up.
But that's the jet stream though. That's
Yes.
And that hasn't it hasn't really changed. It just hasn't really changed that much. One thing I would say though, and I think this is where I think all of us here would agree. I don't like the idea of like polluting rivers. I want to keep like England's land green and pleasant and all that, like the Shire and everything.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I think we all agree that we're all conservationists in that regard.
Also, I don't want to kill thousands of birds every year and spoil every view in Britain with wind farms either.
Yeah. And what's really frustrating is you have scumbags like Tom Harwood, and there's this another account that I've seen pop up where this absolute rat of a person wants to turn England into some a Blade Runner megatropolis, right?
Is it that Anderton or is that Anderton
Yeah.
or that's Sam Bowman? You on about?
Is it? Oh, is that it? Oh,
I can't. I mean, I'm at Anderton. I've seen him all over Twitter just going, Britain needs more skyscrapers.
That's the guy. That's the guy. Yeah. That's the guy. For me, when you the modern climate alarmists, and I think when you're telling me that cows need to be culled because they are causing ruining the planet, and that we need to have cockroach milk or some shit like that.
Yeah. Eat the bugs, pleb.
Yeah, I mean, for me, of course it's bullshit. Of course it's a goddamn hoax. I mean, are they wondering why no one believes it?
I mean, kind of this is the thing for me though, is that I'm a bit probably a bit different from most people on the right in that I could believe that modern globalist industrialization can have an effect on a negative effect on the atmosphere, but to the same token though, like there are genuine reasons to be against like nuclear energy. Let's say I think nuclear energy is a good litmus test, right? Because I don't think these dysgenic mutants that run this place should probably be in charge of a nuclear reactor ultimately. But anyone, and I have spoken to environmentalists, and this is a good litmus test. Anyone who wants to talk about environmentalism or green energy, but will not, on its face, entertain the idea of climate change. In fact, a local Green councillor in my area literally turned around to me and said that the steam that came out of nuclear power plants was pollution.
Jesus
Okay.
Water vapor.
Yeah, you can kind of tell that when they come out with this stuff that the environmental care is secondary to them.
Yeah, they're using it as they're using it to push this agenda that wants to make all of us, and I mean all of us, and people considerably richer than we are, even into 21st century peasants, basically.
Mm. And the thing is, as well, they hide behind
and
a lot of this stuff where they say that, for example, nuclear is unpopular. Yet Boris literally ran on the labeling that he was going to bring about a nuclear renaissance. He didn't do it. He didn't put anywhere near enough money into it. No. But he ran on it, despite the fact that he wasn't even going to do it. Like, what does that tell you? It tells you that deep down, these spin doctors and the campaign teams, they actually know that this is quite popular.
Yeah, I mean, where I live, like, I had this debate with a Lib Dem councillor, quite well known one, very popular one, and I had this debate with her in. I remember it was in a church. It was during one of her hustings, and I said, a similar thing. She wanted to bring an end to nuclear power, and I said, well, what's your alternative? And she then talked about building these using tidal waves that we have where I live as a way to power, but also these lagoons as well. But when you actually looked into it, to build, she would have to. I said, how many lagoons would you have to build, let's say, to power the region, like where we live? And it actually got down to like 3,000 lagoons. Okay,
but even those are good. They're good habitats for wildlife and fish and all the rest of it.
Well,
go and look at the ones that already exist.
Well, that's true. But the way she would do it is she would have to go over current existing land and basically not terraform, because that's what you do with foreign sort of other planet. But you would have to change the landscape to implement those lagoons, which would damage.
But AI, as Mitch was saying just a minute ago, they have chopped down 16 million trees in Scotland alone for wind farms. That's not changing the landscape, is it?
Well, I mean, exactly.
I don't know. It's to me, it's insanity. The only clean and renewable energy source we have at the moment really is nuclear, and it's a lot safer than it used to be. And if Britain was to invest in it, it's one area where Britain could take a lead.
Well, that's the big gets Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, as long as I do think there's. I mean, if whoever takes over, like if Blair or Starmer or Sunak or whoever, which other idiot takes over, as long as somebody in the establishment has can be reasoned with that certain sectors, including nuclear, you can't have diversity hire in that sector.
They will, though. That's the thing.
Well, yeah, they will. I mean, obviously,
that's ultimately why
right,
I am against it. But
well, yeah, but we're on the right, so obviously we have to push for the best people being hired for the job, the most talented and skilled.
You mean white people being hired for the job?
Well, I mean, that's what it amounts to, yes. But, and also I agree with Tuma Volminius in the chat. Don't listen to women, because so much of this climate change bullshit is being pushed by birds. It's being pushed by women.
Mm.
And even the blokes who support it are very,
feminine.
soy boy.
They look like, I mean, it's because they're vegan as well, but they look like Holocaust survivors. I mean, they look absolutely, they look absolutely disturbing and disgusting.
Did you see the guy on one of these Stop Oil protesters who pretended he knew karate?
Yeah.
And the bloke just laughed at him.
It reminded me of I don't know if you remember that guy who was in the Proud Boys in the US years back. Called, was his name like Rufio something or other? Like this
Christopher
giant
Rufio.
of a man, and just used to just flatten people's faces like they were made of paper mache.
Yes.
And these
I
guys,
remember-
he'd be like getting wailed on by like 4 Antifa guys, and he'd just like take one of their battens off them and just start beating them with it.
Oh, I did see that. Yeah, that was pretty good actually. I did see that.
I remember during the summer of Floyd when you had like one of the riots, there was just like these two big, like burly, patriot. I don't know which group they were fit, but patriot group, and they basically just launched at this like skinny, small, puny Antifa chap, and what threw him to the ground, pulled down his trousers, and then just belted him with their belts, his backside, and then there was just like a line of other guys just like kicking him, punching him, belting him in his backside.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Josephina
Yeah.
Herringway in the chat is saying there's nothing wrong with being vegan. I don't think there's anything wrong with being vegan if that's what you want to do. I don't think it's natural for human beings, Josephina. I'm certainly not. But if you're vegan or vegetarian, more power to you. It's a personal choice, but it shouldn't be pushed on people.
I was a vegetarian in my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, I was a vegetarian for a while, Adam, when I was younger. Although I did, I must admit, I did always eat cheese and eggs and milk and stuff like that. But it's a personal choice. My objection to it is not that people want to be vegans or vegetarians; it's that it's being pushed on people.
I mean, I think. Go on.
One thing I would say, and I don't know, I do think from a health point of view, I don't think children should be vegans.
No, I agree with that. I totally agree with that. If they want to do it when they're 18, that's up to them.
Yeah,
Not
I think especially through that like that puberty and everything, when your body's changing and you're developing muscles and all that sort of stuff. I think and I've seen a lot like people I went to school with who were vegans because their parents were vegans, and I see them today, and you can tell that their bodies are like, when I say like Holocaust survivors, I mean that their bodies are just puny and pathetic. It's really sad actually, and it does make you wonder that if they had the different diet, because we all had the same level of exercise and everything when we were there.
I mean, look, one of the things I agree with on the right is the right's push to get young blokes to go to the gym, and even if they don't go to the gym, to like get themselves healthy and be like physically as good as they can be. I think that's absolutely a good thing. And in general terms, if you're a developing child or a teenager, you want as many vitamins and nutrients as you can get. So yeah, absolutely. I don't think children should be vegan at all. I mean, it's like people who make their dogs vegan. I hate those people.
Did you just promote going to the gym?
I did, mate. Yes.
Big Mohan, get him. He's pushing far right extremism.
Yeah. Loads of people would call me a far right extremist, Sam, and as you well know. So
I say next week we're going to do a special on how to tan our balls.
I won't be doing that. Nor will I be putting up pictures.
I mean, you literally have the climate
naked bodybuilders like some people do. Oh, that's funny. Military theorist in the chat just said, do I like BAP? I like some of BAP stuff. I don't like his naked male bodybuilding pictures. It strikes me as being very gay. But there we go. But I do like some of his stuff.
His Caribbean Rhythms podcast is generally very good.
Yeah, no, he's quite entertaining, and I agree with some of his writing. It's just I don't get this obsession with. I mean, I'm not an ancient Greek, so I'm not particularly into nude men. If I'm going to look at nude statues, I'd prefer they were female, to be honest. But
I mean, statues are all right as long as they're kind of suitably heroic.
Yeah. Look, I'm not against ancient statues. It's just all I'm saying is that, you know, BAP is well known for like putting up lots of photographs of naked men, and to me that's gay. I'm sorry.
Well, especially when he did that. What is it? He kept posting about Benjamin Netanyahu, basically.
Really? Okay. What a surprise! I don't know. I mean, look, Netanyahu is a right winger in Israel, so I suppose there's that at least. But you know, whatever.
I mean, there's a big rabbit hole you can go down about how BAP is secretly like a Zionist and is
I have
is
seen
pro the
hints of
Jews.
that. Yeah, no, I've
But,
seen hints of that.
He does play on it in some of his podcasts, like the joke of it running thing. I mean, one podcast, one of his Caravan River episodes, where I think he talked about the king's coronation, but he was mainly talking about British history and everything, and the sort of right wing Americans, you know, dunking on Britain as being, you know, POS country, ground zero, and he was talking about that group, you know, the group that. You know which group, the merchant group, that and everything. And his point was, yeah. His argument was that actually Britain didn't have that particular group. It was the Scottish who were the small hats, which is actually is quite correct, because the Scottish over-indexed in many of trading companies, whether it be from Canada to Hong Kong. I mean, Hong Kong had a large number of Scottish traders, and I mean. And also, not to and out of Calcutta, and I will say that a lot of them were the ones that during the pushing the opium, you know, into China.
Yes,
So
I was just about to say that, but it's funny as well because Scottish leftists are some of the quickest to bring up the opium wars when they're trying to shame England.
I know.
Although let's be fair, lads. Like we've got a fair number of good Scottish people on our Discord. So you know, there's lots of good Scots as well. So we're not slagging off the Scots as such.
I'm not flagging off Scots, but his point was that the Scots also were, you know, they embodied the sort of adventurous Faustian spirit, all that sort of stuff. But so his the reason he likes Britain in that regard was the sort of adventurous nature. But I think the only thing that he has against Britain is the extreme religiosity that comes from, I guess, radical Protestantism and stuff. That sort of where he would be critical of Britain. But apart from that, I mean, I think he finished that podcast saying, "God save our reptilian king, Charles. Long live Cecil Rhodes. Hail Satan, the year is one." I think, that's how he sort of finished it.
Well, the Cecil Rhodes thing, I would agree with, and I have my issues with King Charles III. I have to say. Military theorists in the chat: do I support Keith Woods or BAP? I don't support either of them, mate. I like some things that both of them say, but I don't totally support either of them. Other people on this stream may think differently, and go ahead if you want to, guys.
I would be careful around Keith Woods. That is a character that I would be careful around because, well, let's just say that he's a bit like Milo Yiannopoulos in that regard. And I'm not
I don't know him well enough. I don't know him well enough to reply to that, but if that's your opinion, that's your opinion.
My opinion is if you're going to engage with him, don't give out personal information.
Look, the only thing I can say about Keith Woods is I remember years ago now when he was in the Far East and he was streaming with a bloke who I don't like at all, who's a former heroin addict and all the rest of it, who lives in Cambodia or Vietnam or somewhere, but you know, and I don't like that guy at all, although he's quite popular, but not my cup of tea.
I mean, like, first off, I've learned a lot more from BAP than from Keith, so I'm a bit more apologetic to BAP. Also, on the thing about his whole like JQ thing, BAP's kind of position, when you boil it down, is basically the same as Jonathan Bowden's. Yes. Which is that you have to recognize that these are people who basically are very nationalistic. They fought for their space, and we need to learn something from that. And
Yeah.
you know, because I mean, Bowden brings this up, doesn't he? He talks about how, you know, they sort of epitomise the idea of never apologise.
Yeah, and
there's that-
of course, Bowden was something of a what's the word? Bowden wasn't really a Christian.
No, and he does. I think sometimes he copes a bit when he's pushing the anti-Christian stuff. But like when he comes out and says, "Oh, the Crusades are basically pagan," it's like, I think you're just grasping there. But yeah, it's like on one hand, I kind of want to like Keith. He's done a lot of good work in the past, but like as someone pointed out, like he's been trying to call for the doxing of BAP, and it's like people try to say that BAP is some sort of like like an agent, like a Fed, but BAP's done for a guy who's like an anon and like a complete shit poster, basically nothing else. He's actually managed to achieve quite a lot in the space.
Yep.
You kind of have to give him his due.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And look, it's completely anti-right wing to call for the doxing of anybody, even if you don't like them. I'm sorry, it just is.
No.
That's a lefty thing.
Yeah, only if they're lefties is it acceptable.
Well, yes. One issue I do have, and with some right wing commentators, is if you're like pushed or you're like retweeted by, you know, Elon Musk and big name people in Conning, or mentioned, or you're visibly like pushed, like your whole thing is pushed quite astroturf, like Tate, for example, someone like that. That is like my alarm bells going off at 100%, and it means, oh, that's good, I can stay away. And now I know to stay away from you, because the only people who are pushed like that are people who are either containment or they serve another purpose. Because one of the problems that you have with on the right, and this is something I don't want to bash too much, but there are people on the right, and I think Fuentes is this. They love to play the villain. They love to be the villain of, like name that group, and it's like, fine, but if you just want to play the villain,
AI? Sorry to interrupt you, but what is the point of, say, for example, to our audience going on about the JQ? Does anyone in our audience not know about it? Because I reckon most people do. At least they have some idea.
But okay, so from our point of view, we understand in-group preference. Those people, the small hats people, have an in-group preference. The Irish Americans have an in-group preference. The African Americans have an in-group preference. And, you know, throughout history, every group, the Anglo-Saxon, the Anglo-Celtic people, had an in-group preference. Everyone has an in-group preference. So only recently we haven't had that.
Yeah.
Yes, right. We accept that. Now, okay, we can say, okay, this group controls this group. Now, I can look at history, and I can look at, say, like the British Empire. The Scots had, as I mentioned earlier, pretty much there was a strong in-group preference on sort of mercantile trade, especially out of India and in the Far East. Okay, and then you have, say, in later down the road in parts of New York, you had that small house. I'm not, and my position is, listen, there's always going to be in-group preference. These people are always going to exist. There's always going to be this in-group preference, whether it be from that group or another group. It doesn't matter, right? But what does matter is our group has that dominant in-group preference where we live. That is the key. That's all that matters. If whatever goes on in Israel doesn't matter. That's for them to decide. Whatever goes on in any Arabic country or in France or Italy, that's for them to decide. I don't care. But
the thing is, as well, you can talk about that stuff without being spurgy. Like,
there's
a book. There's actually a book, a pro-Jewish book by Yuri Slezkin called The Jewish Century, which I've named a lot in the past. But and he basically talks about all the great achievements, basically saying all the same stuff that we would talk about if we were doing an actual stream or conversation on the Jewish question. And he does it just as a point of course, and it plays out like you're interacting with an intellectual tradition rather than a bunch of let's say retards on the internet. screeching at each other.
And we also, I think we all agree that the Jewish people of, say, the liberal Manhattan types are very different to the people, say, Jewish groups from in Israel today. In
Yeah.
fact, we've seen in Israel today where those two groups meet.
Yeah.
And I know that there's been this recent discussion. I think it was on Academic Agent Stream, where it was pointed out, because of birth rates between, say, the liberal Jews and the Orthodox Jews are either in the majority now, or will soon have the majority. So Israel is going to be going even more traditionalist, even more well, let's say conservative,
to
right?
the right, to the right.
Yeah.
And the point he was trying to make on that stream is that because America these days is so left wing and so, in inverted commas, woke, how long will that work? And I think that was actually quite a good point.
Yeah,
Well,
and the problem you're going to have is you're going to have America, which is, it's like the West, going further and further to the left, to being more progressive, and you have Israel going even more to right. And so, how's that dynamic going to play out?
Will be interesting to see. I mean, it depends who wins the next American election to some degree in the short term. See, I think AA is totally wrong about the woke's going to be put away. I don't believe this for a minute. And the idea that Labour will put it away is even more ridiculous than that it's going to be put away in America. But it will be interesting to see who wins the next US election.
I think the argument on... sorry, Mitch, go on.
I was going to say, in terms of some of the woke, I won't be surprised if they do strategically put some parts of it away to get young white men back into the army. How successful that will be, I'll leave it up to Duke, because he knows more about heavy army works than me. But
I think you would be insane to join the British Armed Forces today. That's my honest opinion.
Well, that's the thing, though. That's why they see it as important to put away, though, isn't it? Because they need to get rid of that stigma.
Well,
from their perspective, anyway.
Yeah, I exactly see what you're saying, Adam. But do you want to die for Rishi Sunak?
No.
And bloody senile Biden and transvestite story hour? I'm sorry, I don't want to die for any of those things. Well, when I joined the British Army, I was prepared to die for Britain and the British people, but not for that shit.
Well, you take the early 2000s when you had 9/11 and you had this surge of patriotism in America where, George W. Bush, he revs up the patriotism, so a lot of young white men just join to fight and get their legs blown up in like Afghanistan or in Iraq.
Yeah,
like
good bloke. Many good blokes. Like people like Don the Pleb, for example, joined the American forces to do their best for the people in the country. But they were used. They were just used.
Yeah, that's the same dynamic as what they'll do to, let's say, guys my age who join the military. Is they'll just be used to fight for the sake of, let's say, for argument's sake, Taiwan or Ukraine. Either of them becomes a hotspot where we have to go to war for whatever reason. You can just imagine.
I hope to God Britain don't go to war, because the British Army, at a push, could produce one single armoured brigade, which would last about 2 weeks in Ukraine, maybe.
Well, I mean...
And even if they were winning, would only last a month.
Well, it's like, the company will last like a day if you're going off Ukraine, for example. So I don't know how much of a brigade would last. Wouldn't even last 5 days.
A brigade, you're talking about, like an armoured brigade, you're talking about maybe 6 companies, or maybe 6 or 7 companies of armoured infantry and infantry fighting vehicles, and maybe 3 squadrons of tanks. So, if you're saying that they'll last a week, you're looking at each one of those lasting a week. But of course, they're all going to take casualties at the same time. And what are you fighting for? You're not fighting to do anything good for the British people, because why would the British Army be in Ukraine? It's not a vital British interest at all.
Well,
and also, the other thing I would point out is Britain has ammunition reserves for maybe a week of fighting at the most.
I'd say with the case of like the early 2000s, no American soldier joined up would have imagined that they had to have to end up defending the Afghans doing what is it, Bachi Bazi or whatever it's called.
Oh, what with the poor little boys? Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. No American. I mean, I've heard of American soldiers that literally got PTSD because their commanding officers literally told them, "Yeah, you can't do anything about this because these people are meant to be our allies."
There was an
No.
American soldier who reported this, and I know British soldiers did as well. But there was an American soldier who reported this in Afghanistan, and he actually got disciplined by his unit.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show why British officers and generals, why do you think they were so harsh in the Northwest frontier? There was a reason they were very harsh out there, you know. With the
And of course,
locals.
it reeks of revealed preference as well, because you know when the Afghan government turned around and said they wouldn't be allowing women to go to universities, like Gordon Brown suddenly grew a backbone and said, if you don't allow it, we'll withdraw our troops. But you know, all these other practices that go on to turn a blind eye.
Yeah,
I mean,
to me, it's up to the Afghans if they want to allow their women to go to university. Well, that's up to them. I'm not sure we should allow our women to go to university, but you know,
I mean, just imagine we're going to withdraw our troops because we don't have women to go to universities. I mean, that's what a fucking pathetic reason is that to withdraw troops?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is, no raping boys, no burning brides. Simple as that. That is it. That's all it is.
Mighty Balzac in the chat, who is on very thin ice, is saying there's lots of bumming at Sandhurst. Not as far as I know, there ain't, mate. Sorry. Why would there be loads of bumming at Sandhurst? I'm not quite sure. If you ever look at some of the parties there at Sandhurst, you'll see quite a lot of very cute women going to them. So yeah, I think you're talking shit, mate, to be honest. But there we go. But yeah, you know, one of the things that annoyed me the other week is that you had Forces News, which is British Forces News on YouTube, which is a Ministry of Defence channel that constantly pushes LGBTQ and feminist propaganda. In fact, it spends more time doing that and pushing diversity in inverted commas than it does talking about the British Armed Forces, which is ostensibly what it's about. You had Rishi Sunak, the Indian banker, apologizing to the handful of LGBTQ people who had served in the British Armed Forces. I mean, you know.
To be fair, the likes of Forces TV is probably who's doing all the bumming at Sandhurst. So
yes. Although I very much look, 90% of them are women, as far as I'm going out.
Oh,
Nearly all the presenters, etc., are women. I very much doubt any of them have ever served in the military, but you know, that's just me. It's a detestable channel, and I'm shadow banned from it. Like if I put a comment up on there, it doesn't show up to anyone else, and I'm sure I'm not the only one.
No.
Because they don't want former British soldiers putting up comments. And also, you'll often see, like, if you read the comments of some of their videos, there'll be 65 comments which are anti, and yet somehow it's got more upvotes than downvotes. It's all a big con. I mean, you know, it's YouTube. What do you expect?
What were we talking about on the military thing before we got into? About putting the woke away, the containment. I hate saying woke. I mean,
I just don't see it happening, Alan. What do you think?
Well, I can see why people say it's probably going to come from Labour, is because Labour is sort of the quote unquote left wing party. They kind of get a bit of carte blanche to outflank people from the right in the same way that Blair used to. But of course, it's always calculated and never in our favour.
Well, look. Let's also point out, and I always want to point this out, that Sir Keir Starmer was head of the Crown Prosecution Service at the height of the grooming gang scandal and made sure hardly anyone got prosecuted. So if you expect anything from Sir Keir Starmer, I think you're an idiot.
Hang on, but that you seem to be implying that was like a failing on his part. That was obviously deliberate on his part.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And when
I'm
he
not
puts it
saying
away, that will also be deliberate.
Yeah, I just don't think he will, mate.
I mean-
in any case, I expect Labour to come in and cut the armed forces even further than they've been cut before. I mean, the reason the Royal Navy only has 16 or 17 frigates and destroyers these days is because when Tony Blair was Prime Minister, he reduced it from 75 to about 22 to fight his stupid wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, which were absolutely pointless and did nothing but kill hundreds of British people.
Yeah, we've had this conversation before.
Provide, thousands of widows and orphans, basically. I don't. Tony Blair's not based. Tony Blair's
no one's saying he is. So, well, I'm not saying he is. But what the point is that they get more political capital to do these things.
I just don't think it will happen.
I mean, look at when Boris came in, right? And he was literally having people like, even if he had the mission of containing this, I mean, he had the press on him about fucking columns he'd written years ago defending wearing the burqa, calling him like Islamophobic.
I remember that letterboxes and
and it's like. And it's like, but if that had been, let's say, Keir Starmer walking into office now, he wouldn't get that same level of critique. In fact, the press would largely give him free rein until they realised what the fuck was going on. And this is what Blair did. It is what Blair did. He used to outflank people from the right all the time, but of course he did it mostly for the ends of creating a left-wing Britain in the long term.
And rubbing the British people's noses in diversity, as his government famously said.
Well, that was the guy who said that that's what it felt like in the meetings. I don't think that was actually said because, of course, they had a bit of tact. They knew not to say certain things, but still do them. Blair famously did say, "Don't talk about immigration because it's something we could only ever lose on."
And also legally redefined the term British. I mean, beforehand it was quite obvious. It was made up of English, Welsh, Scots, and Irish, Northern Irish, and Ulster. But now British can mean anybody. You can arrive from Somalia, Iran, or anywhere in the world, and you're technically British, like it's some universal Americanized standard term of identification. And
when in fact, of course, all British people are Anglo-Celtic. If you're not Anglo-Celtic, cannot be British.
The institutions now are even denying they denied the idea of the English people, but now they're denying the idea of the history of England itself as a like what we discussed right back along about the Anglo-Saxons and everything. They're still pushing with that to change all that definition terms. So yeah, it's I mean, with putting the woke away, I mean, it is obvious because the problem is, at the end of the day, if you want harmony in the West, because it's quite clear that there is a significant number of people in populations in West America, in this country, and in Europe, who are just not aligned with their governments, right? If they wanted harmony, they would just get rid of the black lesbians. But for some reason, they won't. And I cannot figure out why.
Well, the thing is, the black lesbians are the point. Everything else is geared around that.
But the thing is, if you were like some Eurocrat or technocrat in one of the coastal cities, I would think to myself, if I wanted to cut, I guarantee you, if you got rid of black lesbians, a good 70% of people on, let's say, distant right circles will probably melt away.
Yeah. But
that's all that's needed. If people,
I'm not sure it would be that high, to be honest. My problems with what's going on in the West are much deeper than that. But yeah,
I believe that if they genuinely wanted to get rid of the right, get rid of the energy on the right, which over the last years that has been done, in America and this country and everywhere else. That is like the ultimate containment, is just to get rid of like black lesbians and annoying white liberal women. I mean that's it. Like that's all you need. It's not that difficult.
Well, but when you talk about the white liberal women, I mean, in terms of, and not just white liberal women, like liberal women in general, in Britain, for example, you'd be getting rid of half the Conservative Party, in inverted commas, the so-called Conservative Party cabinet, for God's sake.
That's the point.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I remember I got in trouble with some Conservative supporters because I didn't go along with, Kemi's so wonderful, etc., etc., etc. Because I don't think these people should be like in the great offices of state in the British government, because they wouldn't be in there. There would be no chance of a white person swapping out for them in their own countries where they came from. No chance.
Well, if you look at the seats, if you look at their constituencies, like who's that other? There's a few other, like even Rishi Sunak. I mean, they must be like the only ethnic minority in some of these ones, because it's like rural England of these constituencies. I mean, there's obviously
then I blame the Conservative voters for voting for them. I'm sorry, because I wouldn't vote for Rishi Sunak. Never would. He's an Indian banker.
Well, they don't. You can look at the turnout in these places, and it's rock bottom.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
I mean, I will say like that there's been a few by-elections in this country, and one not far from where I live. I mean, you can actually see on the turnout level and everything that the Tory vote just didn't turn out at all, and they and of course the another party won it, and by a large margin. And it's because no one likes the Indian. Nobody likes the Indian banker.
And I'll point out as well, this is always how Labour have won historically. They have this lie that they tell themselves, because they're a bunch of delusional, retarded freaks, and they say, oh, if we could get people out to vote, they'd vote. Labour would always win, and if this is why like the Tories or whatever are always trying to like disenfranchise voters, is because that's how they win. It's like, actually no, that if you look at Tony Blair, I mean, Tony Blair did win a good amount of votes by himself, but even then the Tory vote just didn't show up. If you go back and look at Callaghan,
they'd had enough, because Major stabbed Thatcher in the back and then took over. And
it's always that the Tories don't deliver on what they promise, and they just do Labour light. And this has been going on for literally like 70 years at this point.
Ever since World War II, 100%.
Yeah, and every time the Tory vote, the Tories get in when people start voting again. And then the people remember how much of a disappointment that party is, and then they shift away, and the party sinks.
Yeah, look, I'm going to be boring, and I'm going to say what I say on every bloody stream, and I'm going to continue to do so. The smaller right of centre populist parties have to have, at very least, some sort of electoral pact not to run against each other. And if you're on the right, that's who you've got to vote for at the next election.
No,
not Labour.
It's not going to happen. No one will. Like half the right will not stand with like Farage, no matter how much he's done.
I get what you're saying. Adman, but I'm going to keep saying this because this is the actual only possible solution.
I agree in Iron Duke in your position in principle, but one problem that I have, and I've noticed this with a lot of Reform Party people. And not so much heritage people are quite solid, but Reform Party and the Reclaim and SDP, it's just those are parties which have just a bunch of disaffected liberals in it. And
I don't disagree at all. I have huge problems with Reform, huge problems. Don't like Tice at all, but the only good solution for the British public, if we convert our way out of this, which I very much doubt, is that these guys have got to make some sort of pact. They just have to, because otherwise they're just taking votes off each other.
Yeah,
as the recent by-elections proved.
Well, I mean, they none of them they all lost their deposit.
Yeah,
So
because they were all
yeah, I
taking
mean,
votes off each other. It's never going to
Yeah.
work. I mean, and actually, of course, you to really have a chance, you need somebody like Farage to actually come back into politics. Whether
Yeah.
he'll do that, I have my doubts, but I'd like him to, even though I don't totally agree with Farage. Although I think Farage is a lot more awake to what's going on than he says in public.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these smaller parties, they should really focus if they wanted to build a foundation, focus on local elections, local by-elections. Those are the place where you can win. I mean, and on that sort of local level, and but it is near impossible to without elite backing. It's near impossible to win a by-election or any election seat in a general election or otherwise.
But
And the modern,
all I'm saying is that like the so-called Conservative Party and the Labour Party are basically a uni party, and the Liberal Democrats and the Lib Dems and the Greens, of course, are part of that too. So if you're on the right, you've got to vote for something else. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't really care what it is; just vote for something else. But for that vote to be any good, those people have got to have some sort of they've got to have some sort of unity, electoral pact, what have you. Otherwise, the vote just gets wasted. But that is better than voting for Labour.
Yeah, do you remember Reg Keys at all? Iron Duke. His son was killed.
Yes,
Yeah, killed in Afghanistan. Again with with poor equipment and everything, totally avoidable and everything. And he stood against Tony Blair. I think it was in 2005 as an independent. And he received a lot of support, I guess, and everything, his constituency. But he got, I think he got about, I know he didn't lose his deposit, and I can't remember if he came third or fourth. But
I mean that's equally useless to the country as a whole. All I'm saying is, like, I mean, I think even if they do have an electoral pact, and even if Farage comes back and he gets some Tory defectors, which I think he would, you're still only going to end up with Farage having, I don't know, 6, 7 MPs maybe, if we're lucky. But that might be enough to start to change things. Whereas a total Labour victory definitely won't be.
No one's saying.
I mean, one of the problems. I mean, one thing that I can't get over it is that to free the right in this country, the Tory party has to go, and all their little propagandists, people like Matt Goodwin and the people who've contained right-wing ideas and thought in this country for decades
100% agree,
must go. But the problem, the fear that I have is, even if the Tory party is destroyed, the vultures who circle it today will just latch themselves to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing, and you'll just have this endless sort of groups of disaffected liberals.
Possibly.
I mean,
possibly. But listen, I'm of the opinion that Britain is sunk, and the only chance we have a tiny chance of fighting our way out of this. And I will support anything that gives us the smallest chance of doing so. I'm not saying it'll work, because I don't think it will. But any chance is better than no chance.
We got loads of chances, but I just don't think this electoral route thing is any good for anyone.
Well, I see what you're saying, Ammon, and I always respect your opinion. But I mean, I don't know what other chance we got except total collapse, and then something might change. And how long's total collapse going to take? Another 50 years, maybe?
It could be
I'm not
hundreds,
even talking about collapse,
hundreds of years. I mean, it could be.
No, I don't think it'll be that long, mate. I really don't. But even another 50 years, that's going to do my son no good.
You don't have to have a collapse to have a rotation of elites. It's ridiculous.
I don't see another way of it happening outside of something happening electorally. How do you
Well,
see that happening?
historically,
How do you see that happening, mate?
I mean, historically speaking, a total rotation of elites it ends up either in war, internal intrigue, which also leads to like some sort of conflict. I mean, I don't think it's going to be like the Mongols coming and wiping out, wiping out like civilizations or anything. It's not going to be like that. Though, I to be honest, I don't know how it would come about. Personally, it could be like the French Revolution, and these fuckers just eat themselves. They tell
Okay,
each other.
okay, all right. Adam, how do you think this can happen?
Oh, for God's sake. Well, for example, okay, so you can't. Here's the thing, right? That people don't seem to talk about or notice. You can't have like look at this recent thing with Farage, right? People were talking about putting the woke away, and they were talking about containment, and they were saying that I've heard some people say it's about incentivization, but they were incentivized from day one to just allow him to continue to operate as he is. He's just with pure rhetoric alone made them fold on everything, made some of them resign. He seems to be on the cusp of making more of them resign. You cannot have an elite that is both this delusional in the face of like basic incentives, but also so weak-willed as they are, and have that turn into any sort of actual open conflict. These people will get eaten alive by a proper counter elite.
Okay, where do you see that counter elite
Oh, for
coming
God's
from?
sake! Literally anywhere, Duke. Like what the fuck? Like what?
All right, I get you, and I hope you're right. It's just I don't see where it's coming from.
You build.
I mean,
it.
aside from people like Farage, of course, which is what we're talking about.
You build it. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I mean, you can already see this appearing now. You can literally look at coastal elites in America, literally the worst kinds of human beings imaginable.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even see there, like the last few competent ones, a huge amount of them. We were talking about the black lesbians earlier. You should see the amount of old guard elites that have been swept up in the new class, and they will literally just be like, dudes, what the fuck? This needs to calm down. That's kind of also the it's the first stage, but it's a groundwork of a rogue elite. Let's say it's we're actually in a fairly strong position as historical matters go. It's there's been far worse times in history to be in a decline.
I mean, one thing I was thinking, I was watching. I think it was at Chatham House. It was Tony Blair and a few other like Microsoft CEO, elite technocrats. And one of their greatest fears at the moment, or going forward for the future, is artificial intelligence, and how artificial intelligence can be used to communicate to the masses. Because for them, it's always about communication.
Yeah.
And remember, the reason why populism back in 2015 and 2016, why Brexit and all this populist wave that swept across, or new right, or whatever you want to call it, swept across the West, was that they temporarily lost control of the dialectic, and that freaked them. And we know, because you look back at interviews with these sorts of people, they talked about how much it freaks them, and artificial intelligence still freaks them, because they're worried that the wrong people, as they put it, will have access to it. They're basically people like us, and people in our spheres have that. And so I would probably say, and I know like people like Cringe-Walk and such, he's got his own sort of thing going on with AI, artificial intelligence, and so maybe the future for us all to be counter elites is we learn to code. Learn to code artificial intelligence. We've harnessed that power.
Well, I mean, I'm already doing that, but I mean, the thing with the AI, they've literally fucking lobotomized the AI to keep it so under control, just because they don't want like publicly accessible tools being used by people who they know are probably reasonably halfway competent. Like the amount of programmers on the fucking dissident right is shocking. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there, Adam, and yeah, they have lobotomized it, like, because if they let the AI do what it would naturally do, it suddenly becomes right wing. Strange to say, because that's common sense, you know. Right wing is common sense.
Have like an army of like we could turn like future US robot like Marines into like reactionary robots for our Order 66 moment.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the robot marine thing. I don't think that's ever going to work really, but all right.
I know. I believe that they'll in the future. So Marines, soldiers in general, armed forces will have like biochips or something in their head.
I hope not, but you know, I'm not. One of the things I don't like about Elon is his push for like that stuff in humans. I don't like that at all. And you know damn well if they do it, the rich will be using it to live forever, etc. You just know that. It's just so obvious.
I mean, they'll probably gift a lot of that to the black lesbians, to be fair.
I wonder about that, but you know, all right. I don't think that you're the guy who founded Microsoft, etc. I don't think those guys like the black lesbians anywhere near as much as they try and pretend they do. But you know,
yeah, but it's not really about them, though, is it? It's about the petty bureaucracy. It's about what they want ultimately.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I suppose to some degree it is that. I just think that our elites these days, in inverted commas, they don't belong to anywhere. They don't think of themselves as like being Americans or British or Australian or whatever. They're the citizens of the world, I guess they probably think, and they despise everybody, and it's so obvious. All the time, it's becoming increasingly obvious how much they despise everybody else.
Yeah, I mean, the resentment is the cornerstone of their politics. I mean, the resentment, the bitter resentment, and the sort of faux narcissism is kind of the point. It's what everything else circulates around.
Yeah.
And it is wrapped up, and I think a lot of it is also wrapped up. I mean, their origins largely in sort of like the 1960s culture that came out of the West at that time. I think a lot of it does revolve. Well, I guess what you could say is like boomer culture, or whatever, how you want to define it. It comes from that sort of. I think that is internalized, you know. Because when a lot of them, if you were to ask them, like imagine like 1950s America or 1950s Britain, in their mind, it's kind of like it's what's that TV show where like there's women wear those weird hoods and red capes.
Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah. That's basically like that's how they envision the world before. Civil Rights Acts and then civil, sexual liberation and San Francisco gay shit and all that sort of stuff. It's
but even that, like the book is like is almost pornographic in places. Like, and I don't mean like because it's descriptive. I mean like it literally seems like the woman that was writing it was kind of expressing sexual fantasies.
Yeah, it's I've always thought that, and it's like 1 degree away from 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
And that's a total female sexual fantasy book.
I can't remember who brought it up, but someone pointed out that if you read some of these, and it is mostly women. Sorry to the ladies in chat, but if you read some of these like anthropological papers written by women, some of them they're talking about like you know the Indo-European sort of like early steppe warriors, and they're getting really descriptive about how they would like kidnap women as sex slaves, and I'm kind of and a lot of it's just pure conjecture, and you're kind of reading through it, and you're like, this is a bit personal for you, I think.
But anyone who like has had much to do with women knows that women think about that stuff a lot. It's a big deal to them. That's why 50 Shades of Grey was such an enormous worldwide bestseller. It's because women like that shit.
Mm.
Maybe sometimes subconsciously, but they absolutely do.
I don't know. Maybe the Puritans were right. I don't know.
I mean, even the Puritans, Puritan women were supposed to be, housewives and keeping quiet, basically.
Yes. Wasn't it like if like the son of a family, if he disobeyed the father, he could be given like the death penalty or something like that? Wasn't that?
But I mean that goes back to ancient Rome, even.
Yeah.
Because the pater familias, the head of the household, if he wanted to have anyone in his family put to death, he could. In theory, although of course most fathers never did such things.
Yeah,
And
unless
in
he
the
did something
earliest days
terrible.
of that, they used to actually, like, you couldn't even discipline someone else's son for breaking the law. You had to go to the father and request that he like dish out a punishment.
Absolutely, and like I say, in theory, in ancient Roman law, the father could put anyone in his family from his wife downwards to death. But of course, men didn't do that because they were husbands and fathers and normal people.
Mm.
Yes.
I think if we just bring back dueling laws, the country will improve massively.
Yeah, I wouldn't be against that. I've got to say, I wouldn't be against that. Yeah, absolutely. I watched. What's the name of that movie? Brilliant film.
Duelist?
But no, that is a good film. But no, I meant Barry Lyndon like a couple of months ago, and that's a great movie. And of course, Barry Lyndon gets in loads of duels because that was the thing in the 18th century.
Oh, is that the Kubrick?
Yes.
Film?
Yes. Yeah,
I'm
it's
thinking-
actually really good.
Yeah, fantastic. That's good.
Yes. But Lydon gets in loads of duels when he's a gambler. And even the narrator points out, this was not a risk-free life that he was leading by any means, So.
Oh, I remember the name of the Falklands film from the perspective of Rex Hunt, played by Ian Richardson. It's called An Ungentlemanly Act.
Yes.
I believe it's on YouTube.
Yes.
It's a very good film. Definitely go watch it.
Yeah, it's not bad. It's not bad. I mean,
On that note, though, I'm going to have to pop off because I need to be up at 5 and it's very late for me.
No worries. Adam, and thank you very much for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you on the stream.
Yeah, no worries. I'll speak to you later.
Go on, boy.
Bye.
Yeah, Mitch, you haven't said anything for a bit. What's your thinking on this stuff?
I mean, on topic of like women with like fantasizing about being taken as like concubines by warlords, I mean, doesn't really surprise me, to be honest. Because I mean, it's like one. I mean, you get those like sort of like green text tweets you'll find like about women get over men quick, and they go because they're biologically meant to. Like a woman can get over a man a lot quicker than a man can over a woman.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Because I mean, let's face it, women have been. I mean, I don't want to sound like a feminist when I say this, but women have been commodified in that because they are able to have children with them. That's the first thing. That's one thing you'll think about when you're raiding an enemy village. Is you just kill off all the men and all the boys who can lift a sword and then take all the women as your sort of concubines, which is what the Indo-Europeans would have done. Because, so for example, your average Englishman is like what? Half of our blood comes from Neolithic peoples, like as well as the hunter-gatherers are mixed with, and then the other half comes from the male Indo-European warlords who took the women as concubines.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, 100%. And women are adapted to accept that eventually.
Yeah.
They always have throughout history because they had no choice. So yeah, I totally agree with that. And of course, what we have today is the feminization of the men.
Yes.
You know, the blokes who would have died in you know, if your city state or your village or your country was taken over by the enemy in like ancient times, and even much more recently than that, if you were an adult male or even like a teenage boy, you were going to die if you lost. Whereas the children and the women, no, they would be enslaved. That was the normal way things were done.
Yes.
And I mean, in like prehistorical times, there is a lot of evidence that many men didn't breed, because like you'd have your chieftains and your top warriors and what have you, who would have umpteen wives, concubines, whatever they were, but like many of the ordinary blokes didn't even have one. So you'll find long periods in history where like a lot of blokes didn't breed.
Oh, that's made me sad now.
But it was a fact.
I know it's a fact. Yeah, as I say, it's depressing though. But yeah, okay.
Well, it's not really depressing. It's
Well,
like, you know, like these days.
Oh no, I get it. I get it. I get it. I do get it. It's just it's.
Michael K, 19th century fan says, I heard around 50% of men never breed. In prehistorical times, I think it was something like that. Yes. But it doesn't have to be today. I mean, one of the things that the manosphere is right about, people like Red Hawk, etc., is like all you need to do is get a little bit of knowledge of female psychology, and you don't have to be rich, you don't have to be 6'5", and you don't have to drive a Ferrari to get women. You don't. Trust me, you don't. Because I'm 6'2", I've never been rich. And I've never had a Ferrari, and I've been with a pretty fair number of women. So you know, you got to use your brain, guys. Adam, you are wrong about this, mate. I'm sorry, you really are wrong about it. And you can even speak to people like Lady of Shalott, who knows Red Hawk online, and Lady of Shalott is a lovely wife and mother. And she likes Red Hawk. Red Hawk's actually a pretty good bloke, and I would recommend his Man's Hour videos on YouTube.
I do wonder though, like, if you were to interact with an American woman, I mean, I imagine that it'd be different, say, so with a British woman. Maybe not as much now, but
it would help you.
If
you had an English accent, that'll actually help you anyway, with an American woman.
Well, but that, like the exotic stuff. I mean, you're exotic then, aren't you? Yeah.
Yes.
Like Japanese women with Western men and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Tell me about it. But yeah. Brucey Kibbutz says he's only 6'4". He drives a Bugatti and he does okay. Okay, mate.
I find personally, as a way, is you can and this is something I just found personally, and it's true, like the Manosphere and Red Hawk and all that sort of crowd. But if you starve a woman of attention when she wants attention from you, number one, you have to know the signs for it. But if you starve them of that attention, you know, it's risky, but it can pay off, you know.
Because otherwise, it's like everything. You've got to use common sense with this stuff. But
you know the situation.
Women like men who will say no to them sometimes. They like that.
Yes. You just have to gaslight women, manipulate them.
To some degree, yeah,
No, I'm
you
joking.
do. No.
I know. I know.
I know what you're saying, but to some degree, yes, you do.
Yeah.
Like there are no based right-wing women, really. There are not. You have to make them.
Now, when I say manipulate, not for evil ends. Don't do it for like really evil, scummy
not at
ends.
all.
Of course, that's not. Do it for positive reasons. Yeah, I mean that's.
A woman who admires her man will gradually adopt more and more of his worldview. That is the truth. So long as she admires him and looks up to him, that's what they will do. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's good. That's how you create good-based right-wing women.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, it's like Red Hawk, for example, made a good tweet the other day where he said, if you look at most women, if you ask most women to show you how tall 6 foot was, they wouldn't be able to tell you. It's true. When women say they want their bloke to be 6 foot, all they mean is they want him to be taller than them. That's all they mean. And like a 5'3" or 5'5" woman doesn't care if you're 5'10". That's fine.
Yeah.
They just want to be able to literally look up to you.
Iron Duke, you know that stream, and that I was on Connor's channel about the reacting to Napoleon's trailer.
Oh yeah, I saw
Napoleon
that.
trailer.
Yeah, it was a good stream.
I think you shared. It was a good stream. Now doing my research into like Napoleon when he was just after the Battle of Toulon, and it shows in that sort of clip of the trailer he meets I believe he meets Josephine. And at this banquet and parties, and there was like a few months where he was it was after the Robespierre was executed and he was out of job and everything, and so he went to a lot of like parties, a lot of functions and all that sort of stuff. And what was funny was a lot of like women of high society of that time would like write in their diaries about like young Napoleon saying, oh, he's really skinny. He's too skinny. His skin is all pale and everything. And they even called him like Puss in Boots and everything. and I think that's where a lot of the myth about his height and everything, why he was like a small man and everything.
Vastly changed when he became emperor, of course.
Yes. So yeah, women do pick up on that, and also he didn't dress. I mean, like he said he wouldn't wear gloves with like some of his like his coat jacket, and when asked, he said, "Well, it's a waste of money for such a luxury. It's a waste of money." Yeah, women do notice these things. They notice how you dress as well.
Yeah, like women will notice if your shoes are polished. Like I don't know about you, AI, but like I've never met a mate or anything and noticed anything about his shoes whatsoever. But if you go out with a woman and it's the first time you've ever met her or the second or third time you've ever met her, she will notice if your shoes are polished. Women
I met a friend. I met one of my friends a few months ago. I was like, last time I saw him was a couple of years back before COVID, and I didn't even notice he changed his hair color. He sort of like dyed it more of a brownish color, but and he's a red hair. I didn't even notice that. So yeah, I don't notice anything.
Do men dye their hair?
I think he dyed it because. Well, I think he dyed it because he I don't know why he dyed it. I think he dyed it because of girlfriend reasons or something. I don't know. That's
men don't do things like that, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, Adam says I've never had any female.
I'll tell him. I'll tell him that next time.
Yeah, you should. You should. Adam says I've never had any female notice whether my shoes were polished or not. I bet you have, Adam. She's just not told you, mate. Women always notice stuff like that. They really do.
Well, they may not. I mean, like with Napoleon, for example, they didn't actually like say all that to his face, but they wrote it down in like the diary.
Yeah, no, of course. Women often won't say stuff to your face. I mean, this is what women are like. But
if they did, if they did, life would be a lot easier.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely true. But women don't say stuff like this. But trust me, Adam, women notice whether your shoes are polished. They really do. Even if you don't, they will. Because, it's a true fact. When a woman walks into a room, she will notice within like 30 seconds to a minute, she will have ranked every single other woman in that room to herself in looks. Guarantee you, that's what women do all the time, every time.
And amazing recall of conversations like from months and months ago,
Yeah.
like even ones I don't remember. And they were like remember like details, which is shocking. I mean, it's incredible. But very important why you have to be careful what you tell them, because they remember. They remember.
Oh, yeah.
I've been burnt before. So
yeah, women don't think like blokes at all. They just don't. If you think women think like you, no, they don't. Nothing at all like you. And this is why I recommend people like Red Hawk to young blokes, because Red Hawk is realistic about what women are like. Do go and check him out. And like I said, don't trust me on it. People like Lady of Shalott, who's an excellent wife and mother, like I said, she likes him because he's a good bloke, and I think he is a good bloke. He may not live the lifestyle that you want to live. You may want to try and pick up a 18-year-old virgin when you're 20, and good luck to you if that's what you want. Although in the modern world, how realistic that is, I'm not so sure. But I think Red Hawk's actually a pretty good bloke and gives some pretty good advice to younger blokes. Mitch, you haven't said anything.
I mean, I think for the problem, because I think a lot of the incel-related culture, especially America, in some ways it was very particular to Americanisms in some way, and I think Red Hawk is definitely good in that regards, because he can actually sort of unlock and sort of get a young American men in particular to get beyond that.
But
I think,
but a lot of the stuff he's saying, I've lived. I was born in England. I've lived in South Africa for years. I've lived in Australia for years. I've been to about, 55, 56 countries. A lot of it is pretty universal, to be honest with you. It really is.
Yeah. The only thing is I would say is, like, again, I've worked with, I've met women, worked with women from all around the globe. I would say Western women are probably a bit more delusional than others, like Asian and such. But overall, there is, the women are quite universal in that regard. Yes.
Japanese women, for example, are pretty traditional. Like, they want to be feminine and cute. Whereas some Western women don't want that. But there are plenty of Western women who would like to be feminine and cute. But of course, everything they get tells them that they shouldn't be. I would just say to Michael K, 19th Century Fan in the chat, Survive the Jive is an excellent YouTube channel. Do go and check him out. He's really good.
Yeah.
Sorry,
he went to northern France. I was going to say he went to northern France recently to sort of go around. I think it was Brittany. He went down to the stone circles.
Yes, he did.
Celtic stone circles and everything, and he's done a lot of like comparison to those in parts of Cornwall and Devon and such. So I mean, he's very much. If you want any good like the top quality pagan content, it's from him. And
he's also a good historian as well in general terms. So yeah, absolutely recommend Survive the Jive. He's got an excellent channel.
Yeah, definitely.
I was just going to say, Mitch, you haven't said anything for a while, mate. What's your view on all this?
I mean, as far as women go, I mean, so for example, when I had I didn't use have a big beard when I had to shave, but I mean, I was told by girls that I knew that I looked more mature with it. But then also, like, I've been told, because I've been gaining weight, like I've been bulking out, not like full on fitness level, but like just like gaining weight, by the way, because it's like like Brian Blessed, for example, he's only 5'8", but I always used to think he was like 6'6",
Yeah.
how big he was.
Yeah.
That's kind of like my shtick is. Let's say a short guy, he can still appear a lot taller than he actually is, just by getting really broad shoulders. Like
my
I'd say,
old man Mitch was like 5'9.5", but because he was very erect, he stood to his full height, pulled his shoulders back, and all this shit. He was never. No one thought he was a small man, you know.
yeah, it's like I know guys who've really poor posture. They look like midgets compared to me, even though they're pretty much like only slightly taller than me. Let's say, let's say they're 5'8", but they look smaller than me because compared to me, they've got poorer posture. So I always try to do my best to stand upright, as well as I don't know, like try and boost up my weight, or I don't know. Let's say, for example, I'll grow facial hair to a point where I look older than I actually am. So I'd say with women, it's more broad shoulders that gets more of their attention.
Yep.
I mean, you have to be taller than them, but let's say, for example, I were to date a girl who's like 1 inch shorter than me, but I got really broad shoulders.
Yep.
It wouldn't really matter to her if I was only 1 inch taller than her. She's going to notice my broad shoulders a lot more.
Absolutely, 100% agree with you, Mitch. That's absolutely true. And the other thing many men forget is that, like, there are plenty of women out there who are 5'2", 5'3", 5'4", 5'5", plenty of them.
Yeah. Also, eye contact is very important, as well.
Oh yeah, for sure.
In conversations, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Victor Claros is saying, on the subject of good history channels, are you familiar with the History Chat? It's a good channel on British colonial military history. Yes, I am. Yes, it's a pretty good channel, but he is a bit of a liberal, I gotta say. But it is a good channel, but he is a bit of a liberal, to be honest. Like, I would disagree with him on some of the stuff he comes out with, to be honest. Adam is asking why eye contact is important. It's because women like it, Adam. That's why. It's that simple. It's that simple.
If you so I understand autists in chat. Eye contact is difficult. There are ways to get around it. If you find eye contact difficult, look at when you, instead of staring into the eyes, stare at the bridge of the nose. If you're a man slightly taller, it can give the illusion of eye contact, but you're staring at the nose. If you struggle, that's a good get around. It does work.
But AI, if you're not looking at her eyes, do you really like her? I mean, if you like a woman, you do look at her eyes, and because women are completely switched on to all this stuff, they notice if you don't.
Well, I mean, it depends. Yeah, I mean, it depends on the person. But yeah, I mean, eye contact largely is important. That's fundamentally that is important, and I know a lot of people don't like it.
Autists,
so people don't do
autists, as you said, I don't get why you don't like looking into a woman's eyes. I mean, I like looking into, if I like the woman, I like looking into her eyes. But I don't get that. But women do pick up on it, and if you don't do it, if you keep looking away all the time, she's going to think that you're not. I don't know what's the right word. She's going to think you're not really into her. Simple as that.
Yeah, you're not interested. Lack confidence is probably a big one.
Yes.
And then if you lack confidence, it's all they internalize. Oh, this is not a suitable person. Yada yada yada. Yeah.
Yeah, but women, like, I absolutely, you're right. And one of the main things they want is confidence in a man. They don't like men who are not confident, because they want a man, like, on a subconscious level, they want a man who they think can protect them and their children. So you have to be confident, because an unconfident man won't do that.
I would say the nose trick, because I know someone in chat said nose trick doesn't work. People notice, but it does work on the assumption that the man is taller. I mean, if you're like the same height as the woman, then no, it wouldn't really work. It'd look weird, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Bjarke is right. The women like men that know how to fight, but because they can't tell that, they go on confidence, because generally blokes who know how to fight are reasonably confident. That's just the way it is. It's one of the things that makes you confident is you don't feel scared of your shadow, you know?
Especially if you fight for a woman. They secretly love it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Women will even do that as shit tests. Which, by the way, you should try and avoid when you can. I'm not into women who do shit tests. But, yeah, absolutely, they will. I've been in fights caused by a woman on purpose.
Don't know what you'll make of like a Slavic women, man, because they're known to do that. Eastern European women are.
Yep.
So like they'll go to a party with a man, they'll flirt with another guy, get the two men to fight. If their boyfriend actually is willing to like stick up for himself against a guy, getting into his territory, shall we say, then the Slavic girl in question will just go, yeah, this is a guy for me. Like strength is, I mean, compared to where in the West, where where men are more demasculinized, whereas in Eastern Europe it's a lot more masculine, but haven't reached our cultural downs as of yet.
Yeah, look, mate, I'll tell you, when I was doing my big trip through the outback of Australia, we were in Catherine, and there's a huge RAAF base there, like a Royal Australian Air Force base there. And this was the time when the Aussie Air Force was switching over to the Hornet. And so there were loads of American fighter pilots there. And I went to a nightclub there one night with my woman. And she said, "Do you mind if I dance?" And I didn't feel like dancing. And I said, "Yeah, go for it." Remember, this is like, 20 years ago. I went back. I went and got a drink, and I sat back on my seat. And then I'm looking, and she's dancing with this group of like 5 blokes, and one of them put his hand on her ass. So I immediately stood up and walked over there and said, "What the fuck are you doing with my woman?" And these were 5 American fighter pilots. Now, I wasn't going to beat 5 American fighter pilots in a punch-up. Trust me, I know my limitations. But on the other hand, the 5 American fighter pilots realized they were going to get damaged if they didn't back off. And they did. So I got slagged off by my girl. She turned around and said, "What the fuck were you doing?" Blah, blah, blah. But actually, secretly, she liked it. Absolutely did. So, yeah, women have been doing this, as people have been saying in the chat, since, like, I don't know, probably forever, basically.
Yeah.
Don't be fooled by women. What they say and what they like are 2 totally different things. Bjarke is saying yes, but that was a white man. Well, my woman would not have allowed some darkie to do anything like that to her in the first place, and wouldn't have been dancing with them. But I choose my women carefully. Bjarke. There you go. She was a white Australian Anglo-Celtic girl. So yeah, I don't know. Oh, Bjarke's saying they backed down because they were white. I don't know, Bjarke. I lived in South Africa for a long time. I've been in fights with black guys, didn't lose. So I don't know about
Did you
that.
say they were? Sorry, did you say they were military? These guys?
Oh yeah, they were American Air Force dudes who were teaching the Australians to fly to fly Hornets. You know, the jet
I mean,
fighters.
maybe they sort of outweighed the, because I mean, if they were to start anything, the chance they could be arrested or thrown into the brig or whatever.
I don't think it was
maybe
that. I think it was more that like they would have got damaged, and they would have got damaged because I was really angry. But you know,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You know, if like I got a woman, you don't touch her ass, mate. You touch her ass, and I'm gonna fucking bow you.
I know my dad, when we were in Cyprus, he danced with the base commander's wife when he was really drunk. So yeah, he got a bit of shit after that.
Yeah,
both at home
I was always very careful with senior dudes' wives. But then I don't go after other blokes' wives. This is another thing the Red Hawk is absolutely correct on. He says you never chase mates' women. You never do, and you don't. The only good advice my old man ever gave me about women was don't chase married women. And he was absolutely 100% correct about that, and I've always stuck with it. I've never chased married women. If you're somebody else's woman, you ain't mine. And I think that's extremely good advice for white guys on the right. Just don't do it. If she's somebody else's woman,
yeah, because
she's somebody else's woman.
yeah, I mean, it's that sort of stuff never ends well, especially if you're like imagining yourself being, you know, married yourself or a couple together, because that, you know, it's likely not going to happen.
I don't know, mate. Like I said, I just think you don't chase mates' wives. You just don't. It's like really bad form. It makes you a wank.
Yes.
It makes you a bad person. You don't. If she's somebody else,
all you Italians and all you Italians and med people out there, that's you. You're bad people.
I don't think all Italians and med people do that either. Actually, to be honest with you, but yeah, no, you just don't do it. It makes you a bad person if you do that. I mean, you look after your mates' women. Like if she's in trouble, you help her out. And that sort of thing. But no, you don't sexually chase mates' women because that makes you a scumbag. How can you be a mate if you do that? You can't.
Oh yeah, not friends. No, I mean, yeah, no. If it's your,
I mean, look,
like
I don't do it to
friend,
strangers. I have been out with at least one woman who on the third date told me she was married, and I said, "See ya, wouldn't want to be ya," and walked out. I paid the bill, including for her drinks, and just left. But that's just me. I'm not saying everyone has to be like that, but what you must be like is you never chase friends' women, ever. If you do that, you're a scumbag and you can't have a friend, basically.
Yeah, no, I do agree. If it's a friend or something, no, that is really crossing the line in that regard. I mean, I will admit that I have had relations with someone who was who I knew. I didn't know they were together, but you know, I thought it was they weren't an item. But yeah, that was some time ago. But yeah, water under the bridge.
Yeah, look, if I don't do I don't go with other blokes' wives ever. Never. If someone tells me they're married, that's the end of the story as far as I'm concerned. Go back to your husband. But that's just me, and that's fair enough. But I would say any bloke who chases a mate's wife or girlfriend, you're a scumbag, mate. Don't do it. And why would anyone be mates with you? Really? Why would they? It just makes you an utter scumbag, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But
I'd actually go a step further, and even if like if it's like they're not married and it's just like boyfriend and girlfriend and they split up, you still don't go after her, because in some ways that does affect the a friendship group. You know.
Yeah, look, I'd say within a certain time frame, yeah, for sure. But I mean, I've never been in that position myself, but I've had mates, women come on to me when they've been drunk or something, and as people have said in the chat, and like if you're an honourable man, what you turn around and say is, "You're drunk, piss off, leave me alone."
Oh yeah, well, whether it's a friend, if there's a drunk woman, don't do anything like that at all, because that is well, I've had a friend who's been in that position, and he was accused of rape. So
Oh yeah, yep,
yeah,
always
yeah,
possible.
never,
And with a drunk girl these days, always possible. You've got to be very. I'd hate to be a
yeah.
young man today. I'd hate to be a young
No, I
man
know.
in 2023.
Yeah, if a woman's drunk, don't just that's just no, don't even attempt it. Even if you're drunk yourself, it's still.
But that makes no difference because men can be drunk and you're still responsible, whereas women can be drunk and somehow they're all of a sudden children. This is the way the law works today. It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
If
I mean,
you're
it's funny because, feminists on the one hand, like feminist boss girls can do everything, etc., etc., etc. They can be infantry soldiers, which they certainly can't. They can run everything, they can do everything they want. But on the other hand, any weedy little feminist bloke can beat up any woman because that's the way it works in terms of domestic violence. And a totally drunk bloke and a totally drunk woman who have sex, if the woman changes her mind a day or a week or a month later, that bloke can be convicted, even though he was just as drunk as she was. It's ridiculous. It's obviously ridiculous. And it's treating women as if they were children, which feminists are not supposed to like. But in fact, they do. So, there you go. And like I said, the woman can change her mind the next day, 2 days later, a week later, or even a month later, and you can still get done as the bloke. Oh, she was drunk, so she never really gave consent. Yeah, right, okay. It's just crap, and like every sane human being knows it's crap, and everyone on the right should be against that. Mitch, you haven't said anything for a bit, mate. What do you think?
I mean, this is one problem from my generation, is the fact that you'll get let's say you get a 14-year-old girl who goes to a nightclub, and of course a bloke going to that nightclub, let's say he's 22 or whatever, he'll assume that girl is, at least 18, because why else would she be in a nightclub? They then have sex, and he gets in trouble for it because the girl deceived him, pretty much. Yep. And it's not. The girl doesn't really get much trouble. She might get bollocking off her parents, but in terms of the law, she doesn't really get bollocking off. A man will, who will probably get. I mean, I've heard of cases where the guy gets put on a sex offender register for behaviour like that.
Yep.
When it's not his fault.
Brucey Kibbutz in the chat is saying a 14-year-old girl in a nightclub. Brucey Kibbutz, let me tell you, when I was a young man, and I'm talking now about the 1980s, right, and the early 1980s, there was a pub on the Old Kent Road called the Dung Cow that was absolutely known for the fact that if you found a girl in there over 18, that was unusual. Really, most of the women in that place were between about 14 and 17. And all done up to the nines in makeup and all the rest of it. And how were you? Yeah. And like, bear in mind, when I used to go there, I was 18 years old myself. How were you supposed to know whether this girl was like 14 or 16 or 17? And the age of consent in the UK, by the way, is 16. So, how were you supposed to know?
Well, exactly. I mean, and also, like, I remember there was one girl, and I was 18 at the time. She worked at a nearby store, and she looked. It wasn't makeup, but she was quite. I wouldn't say withered, but she looked older. I thought she was probably about my age, maybe slightly older, but she was definitely. You would think that she was a young woman, right? I found out that she was 15,
Mm.
and you see, if I hadn't been told, by another chap who worked at that shop, yeah, you know, so you have to be careful with this sort of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, look,
They do look old.
I was like, I'm sure you and Mitch would be like, you look, have they got tits, etc., etc., etc. Because like, I'm not interested in some girl who ain't got tits, you know. But
Oh, yeah,
plenty
that's
of
just the problem. She did.
14-year-olds have
She,
breasts,
she
you
did.
know. Yeah,
Yeah, but
exactly.
the problem is she did. She did, and but the clothes she was wearing made her look like she was a young woman, and it wasn't until I mean, I probably should have been more vigilant. She was talking about her education. I just assumed college or something. I didn't realize,
Yeah.
or uni or something. I didn't realize that at the time. But yeah, I mean, you do have to be careful with that sort of stuff. And I remember when I was told, I was pretty horrified with that. Actually, I was pretty horrified because I just thought I just thought, well, how come she looks like somebody double her age? I mean,
Yeah, but
how's
this
that
this
possible?
is one of the things we found in the West in recent years is that blokes are taking longer to sexually mature, while girls are sexually maturing earlier.
Yes.
You see 20-year-old blokes today, and I look at them and I think, what is he, 14, 15? But you look at girls at 15 and you think, oh, yeah, she could easily be 19 or 20, you know? What are you laughing at, Richard?
Sorry, I just started looking at Bjarki in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough. He's right about this thing. Yeah. I mean, but
Yeah, he is right.
why are women doing this? Because they can make loads of money simply for taking their clothes off.
I
all they
do
have
have
to
a
do.
problem. I
I
do
mean,
think the
I
majority
don't
of
like it. I'm not saying I like it. I'm just saying that's why they do it.
no, I don't like it as well, but I do think the majority of OnlyFans are probably underage. I don't believe in this whole mechanisms they have to make sure. I think there are a good portion of them are underage. What was it, pornography on those websites? A lot of them the websites were taken down because they found out a good portion of them were underage. So yeah, it's not good stuff. It's not good stuff at all. And yeah.
Well, I remember states in
I,
America that said they were mandating for like so that let's say someone wanted to go on Pornhub, they would have to show up their ID basically to frequent sites like that. And Pornhub just went, yeah, we're going to leave this state altogether. So, like, so if you actually make laws to restrict children from ever viewing Pornhub, like Pornhub would just leave the state altogether.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I understand that you can't really ban it because it's always going to be there, and it always has been there in some fashion. But I don't know. I think some of the content that comes from these Silicon Valley organizations, like some of the content, it's just it's a lot of it's very sickening. I mean, it's like incest type pornography, you know.
Oh, look.
It's
One of the things
it's
I
just
don't
really
get.
sickening stuff.
One of the things I don't get, is why these blokes give all these OnlyFans girls so much money when there's endless amounts of porn on the internet. If you just want to look at some cute chick with no clothes on, it's not difficult and you don't have to pay anything for it. So why do you keep
I-
giving these
I think
these virtual whores money? I don't get it.
because I think in their minds that if they can get that personal experience with this this woman or this girl they find attractive,
What, when she turns around
it's
and
like
says, "Oh, thanks for the $200, twat"?
well, I trouble is a lot of modern men are they're not pretty weak, to be honest. So I don't I think it's a rabbit hole that a lot of them fall into. I think they delude themselves. A lot of it's based on delusion. Also, you remember that was that Tate person. What did he say? He said he would get like staff, like other chaps working for him to pretend to be these models and have like long text conversations. That's how a lot of the and a lot of companies do that manage OnlyFans accounts. I remember reading about it actually. And so a lot of these people, they're not they think that these like texts with these models are actually them having conversations one-on-one, and then when they do like their performances they'll be watching, paying money and everything. But it I mean it's just one massive
I'm sure that's
scam.
true. I'm sure that's true, AI. But let me tell you guys, anything that you spend $200 on to an OnlyFans girl, you can get a real woman to do for you if she just likes you. She's just got to like you, and she'll do all that stuff, but actually in person when she's there, not on a screen.
I mean, I can't speak for the generation below me, the sort of Zoomer types, because I don't know how they think. I don't know what sort of fucked up things have been affected in their minds. All I can observe from them is that they they've been indoctrinated with anti-masculine propaganda for all their lives. I think that a lot of them just have no vitality left. They have nothing left. They're empty. They're empty. They're hollow.
Insane. It's just insane to me, mate. Just insane to me. It really is. I mean, there is nothing the average bloke wants a woman to do that the average woman will not do if she likes it. Trust me, there isn't. And I'm not the most conservative of men when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah. And
She's just got to like you. But giving, like, Fox $200 on OnlyFans is all you're doing is giving away your money and helping our enemies who are turning women into prostitutes or virtual prostitutes anyway, and destroying your own masculinity. That's all that's happening. This again is why I like people like Red Hawk, who's actually in favor of blokes being masculine, because women like masculine men. They do, trust me.
I mean, also there's the mental health aspect of it. I mean, if you are masculine, or if you embody those values, and I mean, take the sort of physical aspect away, the gym aspect. If you embody those values, that make men, men, right? You're in a better place anyway. And if you are, you have a job, you're working, you have a responsibility. I mean, I would also say if you're looking for girls, having a dog is also handy.
Yeah,
That's quite a good
women like dogs.
in some
absolutely.
Yep. Yeah, especially like if you get like a Labrador Golden Retriever. I mean, that's like the top. That'd be my top recommendation.
Doesn't matter. Any dog. Take him for a walk. You'll end up talking to women who are walking their dog. Yeah, absolutely, 100% true.
Get chatting along. Yeah. So, I mean, but I would say one thing that I have noticed, and you've all seen like these I think people in chat as well have seen like these Ryan Gosling memes going about, I'm literally him, and it will show
The Ken thing, you mean?
the Ken thing. Well, it started with his Blade Runner stuff and Driver and everything, and the reason is it's basically like a Zoomer internalized projection onto him
Drive
of
ain't a
like
bad film, by the way. Drive is an okay film. I'll say that.
it is an okay film. It's okay film, and he's quite masculine in that. He's not some
Yeah. Yes, he is.
some
Yep.
like pathetic. Yeah,
Yeah.
he's quite a masculine figure in that, but he's more stoic, I would say. But the thing though is, the sort of Zoomer projection onto him of being like this. I wouldn't say incel, but like this character who is like doom and gloom of black pills and the inability to communicate or the unwillingness more likely to communicate with to be with a woman or anything is also damaging, because it just perpetuates that the problem of of not enough of the next generation reproducing, not getting with women. And I do wonder, those sorts of memes also are incredibly damaging.
Biaki in the chat is saying, in A Place Along the Pines, Gosling's baby mama is a Hispanic. Never seen that, so I don't know anything about it. And in Drive, he saves a woman who is married to a Hispanic. Mate, I saved black African women when I was in the SADF in South Africa. What does that say about me? Didn't fuck them. Didn't want to fuck them, but saved them.
Didn't he kill like the husband in Drive? Or somebody killed the husband, I think.
I can't remember, mate. I saw it years ago. I thought it was an all right movie.
I mean, if he killed the husband and married her, wouldn't that be kind of based? No.
I don't. Like I said, I don't remember that film, to be honest. Except I remember when I watched it, I thought it was all right. I thought Blade Runner 2049 was really slow and too long. Didn't like it, but that's just me.
No.
Yeah, there was something else I wanted to address. Someone said earlier. What was it? Let me see if I can find it. Oh yeah, Michael K, 19th century fan, said women would rather share a Chad than be with a normal. I think many men today exaggerate what a Chad is and minimize what a normal bloke is. I really do. Like, most women would sooner have their own bloke, to be honest. And I think many men underestimate themselves, and especially like young men these days. I think many young men these days underestimate themselves. I think they're better than they think they are. Yeah, all right. There are some women who would absolutely sooner share a Chad than go with, like, say, me, but that is not the majority of women at all.
Yeah, I mean, I know there have been surveys done about women, like, what's your your body type and you look in a male, and this whole sort of muscular stuff is not actually as high as you think. It's
No.
it's not that high. I mean, you also have like this like dad body, they call it, or some dad body.
Women don't like fat blokes by and large. They really don't. But if you're not fat, yes, women like blokes who are reasonably well built, and a reasonable good shape, just like we like women.
But if you haven't got like a six-pack, yeah, but if you haven't got like a six-pack, it's not like the end of the world.
That is not the end of the world at all. No, most girls don't really care that much about that. I mean, what I see where I live a lot these days is a pretty reasonably looking young dude with like a fat woman, and I think, what the bloody hell are you doing with her? I see that quite a lot these days, and like I don't understand it at all. Like I'm 58, and I wouldn't go out with a girl who looked like that. Never mind this like 20-odd-year-old dude. You gotta have some standards as a bloke. Michael 19th Century K fan is saying, with women, they go by how you act, not what they want. Big difference. I don't think that's true, mate. I really don't. Women go on how you are. Really, they go on how you are. You may have to fake it until you make it, but that's what they go on. So, you know, that honestly, that's the truth as far as I know it. Mitch, what do you reckon?
I haven't really got much in my way of this, so I
think women are a little bit more based than some blokes think they are, but you do have to fake it until you make it with chicks. You really do. They go on how you are.
I guess
more than anything else.
I guess it depends if they have a father figure in their life or not.
Yes, that always helps. That always helps. Yeah. If you can find a girl who has a good relationship with her dad, she will almost always be the better. Almost always. If she has a good relationship with her dad, you'll generally find she's a much more balanced woman. And of course, many girls don't, because many come from single mother families and all this kind of stuff. And then you've got much harder work.
Yes.
Well, Michael, 19th Century K fan, I would say don't be so black-pilled. There are still plenty of quite good women out there, mate. But you always have to work on it. You're not going to find this perfect right-wing girl. You will have to work on it.
Okay, so one thing I would say is most women on social media that you see, the pretty ones, I mean, they are, in fact, in the minority, and they're usually the people that you wouldn't want to be with because they're the most, you know, they're the most, I don't want to say toxic, but the most trouble you get with.
Tell me about it, man. I swear I spent most of my life.
Yeah. they bring the most trouble. But, yeah, it's not like that. I mean, I find women locally where I am are actually quite, you know, that not that bad, really. I mean, sure, there's a few like progressive liberal bullshittery under the surface, but you know, you can. It's not that bad. I mean, I guess London, women in London. I mean, it's a bit different, but yeah, you have to be sensible. But I can't speak for other places. Like if you're in America or Australia, I don't know what the women out there are like.
Very much the same all over the world, mate. Women don't change. They're the same all over the world. Like I said, Japanese girls are a bit more traditional, I'd say.
Yes.
But, you know, Japanese people are a bit more traditional.
I would say,
in general terms, Western women, there's no difference. They're all pretty much the same, whether you're in Britain, Australia, South Africa, Canada, America, New Zealand. It makes no difference. They're all pretty much the same with the same.
I would say that, like, I've noticed like Polish. I don't know if it's Slavic women in general, but like Polish and Czech women are like the least obedient with their husbands. Like they will like chat back and talk back and everything. You know. So I don't know if that's a. I remember there was a thing on like a BBC short. It was absolutely hilarious. If I find it, I'll share it. It was there was just that redhead like girl that used to work at the BBC, do documentary. It was Stacey Dooley, I think it was called, and she went to Russia to like this rural Russian village where she met this I can't remember who he was. He was I want to say Orthodox priest, but I don't believe he was, but I think he had some connection to that maybe it was like a relative, and he had like this his wife and everything, and he kept on referring to her as bitch, like bitch, pick up her coat, and everything.
Can I just say I accidentally just banned Bjarki, and I didn't mean to. I just meant to remove his scurrilous comment. I will sort it out after the stream and unban him. But yeah, you can't post stuff like that in my chat, mate. Sorry. He was actually claiming one individual raped another individual with no evidence whatsoever. You ain't doing that in my chat. Sorry. But I will unban you, Bjarki, after the stream. Sorry.
I think Alice was saying, come on, say AI, come on, say, you mean Quaker girls, lol. Yeah, I to be honest, Quaker girls, the word the pacifist ones are the worst ones. And yes, I have one of my first girlfriends was a, well, she wasn't a Quaker, but she was like a pacifist type.
We used to say that about Catholic girls in the old days, but yeah.
No, she like properly like was like in the white, the white poppies crowd.
Oh no! What the ones who like won't support the armed forces dudes? Yeah, hate them.
Yeah, it's that proper that, but she was she was good looker though, but
yeah, Brucey Kibbutz. It wasn't because he was trying to defame Andrew Tate. It was because he claimed one person raped another person with no evidence. And I'm sorry, you cannot put that in my chat. If you put that in my chat, I will remove the comment. And as I've said twice, I will unban Bjarki after the stream. Because I didn't mean to ban him, I just wanted to remove the comment. So, yeah. And I'm no fan of either Andrew Tate or the other person that Bjarki mentioned. So there you go. And if that actually happened, I wouldn't even care, to be honest.
I mean, I don't believe any. I mean, number one, I think this Andrew Tate was pushed by the establishment. I think the people, victims around him, quote unquote, are also establishment. I just believe that this is just one massive establishment pantomime.
And the vast majority of the so-called victims are supporting Andrew Tate. So I mean,
I mean, listen, Andrew Tate is he is ultimately a scumbag in itself. He is his latest thing of wanting to build mosques and everything in central London.
Yeah, look, that's what really turned me off him was when he did the whole Muslim shit. But I do think he's being set up. But I think he's probably being set up, as you say, for.
I think he's in on it. I think he's in on like Nick Fuentes. I think he likes to be the villain.
I don't think he spent 3 months in a Romanian jail if you're in on it. I'm sorry, I don't think you do. But all right.
I mean, I would say if you go to a country, right? He went to a country like Romania, which is Orthodox, and it has a lot of painful past with Islamic invasions, right? And then you mouth off about the government and then convert to Islam and do some shady stuff with native girls. You're asking for trouble. I don't care what, they're not like some pussy, livy-livered shitheads like you get in this country. They actually have self-respect and respect for their own people. I'm not surprised that he got, whether or not the charges are jumped up or not. Yes, okay, they're corrupt. Yes, it is corrupt out there.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. He still behaved like that. And you don't, I wouldn't go out to an Islamic country, or when I was in an Islamic country, I wouldn't, I wouldn't like spout off anything that would try and subvert the people there.
Mate, like
because
I said,
number one, I would go to prison.
I'm not an Andrew Tate fan, never have been. But I do. I think the whole thing is bullshit, basically. Right? If he was getting chicks to go on OnlyFans, I don't care. Really, I don't care. Wasn't my door.
Pedro,
and nearly all the women who he is being accused of doing this, that, and the other two are supporting him. So what are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah. And by the way, no, it is a conspiracy, because the thing there is, the reason is that everyone's pushing it. The establishment are pushing it. Take someone like
I
Stefan
think
Molyneux, for
Alice
example.
Little is possibly right with the comment I've just put up from chat. I think she's
I agree. It's
possibly
going to be
right.
a case of flattening him up to give him hard fought in the anti.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I
that's
think
what
there is.
what I
think
think
that is
to
correct.
some
Yeah.
degree. Yeah.
That's my angle, because the thing there is, if you look at other people, right, who've someone like Stefan Molyneux, for example,
Yep.
he was complete. And when I say like he was not just debanked, he was just completely removed.
Yep.
His presence on the internet was near enough completely removed.
Again, another bloke who I didn't totally support, but you're right. Yeah.
And the thing though is, you can tell the fact that, and if Andrew Tate was, let's say, a genuine person, dissident minded, he would not be on Tucker Carlson. He wouldn't be on what's that retard's name? Piers Morgan. He wouldn't be on those guys' shows, and he is. And people like that, if they are quote unquote cancelled by the left or whatever, and then appear on LBC or constantly mentioned on MSM networks, that means there's probably something more going on there, and you need to be careful.
Yeah,
so
look,
I
don't disagree. Like I said, I'm not a big fan. Although, as Adam has pointed out, I'm not an Andrew Tate fan. I'm just going to lightly defend it. Yeah, I am lightly defending him because don't believe all women. I'm sorry, I don't. I originally came from the manosphere, if you like. And yeah, I don't believe all women. I really don't, because I know what wise women can be. The same goes for this bloke, Brucey Kibbutz. I think his victims are too female to defend themselves. I'm sorry. Like, women have every single advantage there is to have in all Western legal systems. So yeah, again, I'm not going to agree with you, Brucey. And I'm very disrespectful to women, trust me. I like women. I really, really like women, but I like feminine women. Modern Western feminist women don't give a fuck about them, like, frankly. They're assholes, is my honest opinion.
I mean, also with Andrew Tate, I mean, for him, it's very much it's like a materialist mindset. You must get a Bugatti and all that sort of stuff. And
ugly car. If you ask me, I thought it was an ugly car.
There's no, like, I mean, I think his Islam stuff is. I think that's from a materialist point of view as well, because he looks at probably the Arabic world, especially like Abu Dhabi, Dubai, United Arab Emirates, the Gulf countries.
He himself is a bit of mystery meat, so
Yeah, I mean, I think he looks at those places, sees the wealth from that, and sort of associates that. And I mean, I don't think he's ever deeply considered Islamic literature or any sort of thing on the spiritual level.
No,
if I'm
probably not. Probably not.
He's not like a René Guénon sort of convert.
I mean, even if he had, I wouldn't like him anymore because I don't like Islam. But Islam thinks.
I mean,
Islam thinks you can have 13-year-old girls as wives. I don't agree with that.
Well, for starters, there's he sort of his sort of source of Islam is Arabic, but then in this country he's sort of in conversations with the Deobandis, which is more like what was it, Pakistani?
Yeah.
So and if you know anything about Arab Muslims, is they're not very fond of non-Arabs, whether they're Muslim or not.
Yeah, no, absolutely right, mate. And I have no room for any of them. So, like, I have no room for Islam. I don't like Islam at all. Brucey Kibbutz in the chat says that women need to be saved from themselves. Not by me, they don't. I'm sorry. Like, any woman who needs saving that badly, I'm not going to risk myself to do it. Sorry. Adam is saying he chose Islam for the polygamy aspect. Did he? I don't know. Maybe. I'm not even against polygamy from a bloke's point of view, to be honest with you. But from a bloke's point of view, women's point of view, nah, blokes who accept that are total cucks. But I'm a bit more Chad than some people, so there we go.
I mean, it goes back. I mean, I would challenge. I mean, of course, we know the state of the Catholic Church and definitely the Anglican and most Protestant religion faiths in the West, but I would say the remaining Orthodox Church. I would challenge the idea that they are, let's say, not macho, not based or anything, because. I mean, I think Andrew Tate or his brother, one of them, said at the time that they said the reason why they were targeted particularly was because of their conversion and because of their criticism of Christianity. And
no, I don't.
Romania is still quite.
I don't follow them closely enough for that.
No, but I remember that came out at the time because I am aware that Christianity and the Orthodox faith in Romania is, and I know this from one work colleague, especially in rural Romania, it's very, very strong.
I thought Romania was full of gypsies and like loads of bad people, but that might just be my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you got like you have, but because of the landscape, you do have like ethnic Hungarians living in like the western border area, and then like you have in the south and east, you have the Roma.
AI. Look, I'm very against turning this into a Tate stream. All right. Brucey Kibbutz in the chat says, "Don't need to risk ourselves. We just need to lock up pimps." Okay, I would agree with that if you're going to lock up whores as well, but we're not, are we? Because locking up pimps is just going to suit the left and the feminists. Yeah. So that's my view on this, Brucey Kibbutz. If you, I'd say lock up pimps by all means, but only if you're going to lock up the whores as well. And I don't think that's going to happen. And all you're doing there is just supporting the feminist narrative. And I'm not a feminist, I'm sorry. In fact, I detest feminists. I think they're some of the worst people in the West. In fact, probably the worst people in the West. So, that's my own view. But like I said, I don't want to turn this into an Andrew Tate stream. I don't like the guy enough to do that. But I do just think we should be a bit realistic when we're looking at what's happening to the dude. And the people who don't like Tate are not our friends. They're not. So, Biaki, you're back. I'm pleased to see it, mate. Sorry, because I didn't want to ban you, mate. I just wanted to get rid of that comment. Because you can't say some two named individuals rape people. But anyway, I'm glad Biaki is back. Mitch, you haven't said anything for a bit, mate, and we're going to wind this up fairly shortly. What's your view on the stuff we've been talking about?
I mean, I don't know why we defend Andrew Tate, because, I mean, I just personally think why defend him. Like, he is a very distasteful figure. I don't know if I call him evil, because I don't really know the full details of it all, but, I mean, it's on the whole polygamy aspect, or like, I mean, before we've converted to Christianity, we used to have like a sense where, let's say you were a lord, you'd be able to have like your wife, probably you'd have like 3 concubines at least, who you just
100%. Yep.
Yeah. So like, it's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of traditional to have like sort of polygamy and or concubines. But then we've been Christian for like 1,500 years, so that monogamy aspect is also like long entrenched in us. So it's kind of like, I mean, to be fair, let's say for argument's sake, we had a certain redacted event happen where the only men that were left in the West were guys like us, but women massively outnumbered us. and we had to do polygamy to have any sense of, not having a load of like fertile women just like go to waste, shall we say. I don't
Yep.
want to have to say that because he said like I'm treating him like a product, but you get my point.
Yeah,
I wouldn't really say no. It's like Paraguay, for example, had to have polygamy after the Paraguayan War because so many men died and
Yep.
there were so many women left widowed or single. So
yeah, like I said, look, I'm not against male polygamy, but I think when it happens in where like a woman has more than one bloke, then those blokes are gay. They're gay or so weak it's unbelievable. Like, I don't care what she looks like. Like, no man should ever accept that. But when women do, I can kind of see it. Because to women that makes some sense. But women and men are not the same. I mean, this is the difference between me and feminists. I don't believe that women and men think the same way, believe the same way, and have the same goals in life. I just don't think that's true because it isn't. And I'm old enough to know that isn't true.
Well, the bit that gets me is, let's say you have a woman who's got like 4 men who act as like husbands or partners, and she gets pregnant. How the hell is she meant to know who's the father?
But I don't know. I mean, maybe some blokes like sloppy seconds. It's not my idea of fun, but I mean, some blokes it might be.
I mean, at least if a man would have like 4 wives or a wife and 3 concubines or whatever, you know who the father is. Or generally you could.
Absolutely,
you should.
Yeah, absolutely,
But a woman has 4 males shagging her at the same time. How the hell do you know who the father is, and how the hell would child support work in that scenario? It would be a complete nightmare for all the blokes involved in such an arrangement.
Just to me, if you accept that as a bloke, you're not a bloke. I'm sorry. It's not.
Well, yeah. Well,
you're worse. In some respects, I'd say a bloke that would accept that is worse than a gay guy.
Well, although if you're willing to play second fiddle for a woman, I mean, you might as well just cut your balls off for all the good they does you.
Exactly. Get pegged,
I do remember the reading about. I think it was Emperor Justinian. He did pass it was like a legal document which gave like concubines and the offspring of concubines property and certain legal rights. So, because the thing was, like, even in early Christianity and at that time, it was around. It was something existed.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because in the late Roman Empire, that was quite common. Yeah, but also in the late Roman Empire, you had things like eunuchs becoming quite common, which in the earlier Roman Empire were not common at all. But in the late Roman Empire, it became much more common.
Yeah, I know of.
Yeah,
I've heard of I don't know really too much about it, but apparently, so Wales, even when they were Christian in the early times when they only just converted, they still practiced having concubines. It took them a few hundred years for them to become fully monogamous, and according to Christian tradition.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, let's be honest. I mean, you can look at the British monarchy, the English monarchy in the medieval world, and none of them were above, or very few of them were above having mistresses, etc.
Well, the only one.
Sorry. So I was going to say, look at William the Bastard. I mean, he was the offspring of effectively a concubine herself, and but he was still recognised, and his family, his extended cousins, what are they called, the Courtvilles, is that what the name? His cousins or relatives and his half brother. Oh, they still recognised him as the head of the house after conquest and stuff. So
yeah, it's just a shame he didn't lose at Hastings, but
yeah, I mean, I was going to say William the Conqueror and Edward Longshanks are the only 2 medieval monarchs I can think of who were 100% faithful to their wives.
Yes.
All the others were.
Yeah.
I mean, Henry VIII is the most famous example, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm
There
pretty
were
sure.
loads of others, mate. Loads of others.
Yeah.
I mean, look at
Was
Nell Gwynn, for example, after the Restoration. Yeah, it's it was quite common.
Wasn't I was going to say wasn't I'm just trying to think. I'll say Richard the Lionheart. He was quite faithful, wasn't he, to his wife?
Yeah, but I mean, there are stories about Richard the Lionheart, which I don't know.
Yeah, homosexual.
But I don't
homosexual.
actually. But I don't believe that. Like, having done some more reading into that lately, I don't think that's true. But yeah, of course, there were some faithful monarchs because blokes vary, you know.
Yeah, you have to be careful with sources. I mean, like I did a bit of reading. They do. I mean, you have to be careful with those sources there about these rumors. I mean, I looked one of the famous ones. I looked into the Borgia family, and of course, you have the Rodrigo Borgia, who became Pope Alexander, and and then he had his offspring Cesare Borgia and Lucrezia, and the supposed incest relationship, and that she murdered his she murdered like her husband. Everything. I to be honest, I don't believe.
I'm not sure the incest is true, but she was.
There's no the thing there is you have the sources for a lot of these rumors are basically the Orsini and the Sforza family, who just one of which that she married the Sforza family, and they just hated the Borgias, and trouble is you can't there's no evidence for that, and especially the incest one, that was just pure rumors, and but by hostile families, and it was never taken seriously at the time anyway.
No, fair enough. I mean, like I said, and also looking at all historical sources, you have to look at the sources we have, and very often the sources we have are an axe to grind, and so obviously there's some bias in that respect. But the fact is, men are men, and English kings are no different to average men in the sense that some of them were faithful and some of them weren't. Just how blokes are, you know.
Yeah.
And it also depends how much the bloke loves his wife. I mean, you know, I've been with women for years who I never looked at another woman seriously. Not to say I didn't look at another woman and say, oh, she's got nice legs or whatever. But I never looked at her sexually, seriously, because I just didn't, because I was totally in love with this chick I was with. Other women I've been with, not quite the same, you know. This is the reality of life. In my honest opinion, anyway. Guys, before we close, I want to plug something. On Wednesday, 2nd of August, probably at 10 p.m. British time, we're going to be doing a stream on the military career of Arthur Wellesley, i.e. Field Marshal the Duke of Wellington. AI is going to be a guest, and also Ruth August, who some of you will know from various streams I've done. And hopefully this will be an interesting stream for people who are interested in history. It's going to be one of a two-part stream. The second one's going to be on the naval career of our warlord Nelson. I'm not quite sure when we're going to be doing that yet, probably in a week or two. But the first one on Wellington will be 10 p.m. on Wednesday, 2nd of August. So do come and watch that. I think it will be a good stream. AI, anything you wanted to plug, mate?
No, not sorry, not at the moment. Apart from your, you got the stream I did with Rupert on Connor's channel, on his YouTube channel. Our sort of breakdown of the permanent. It was really good, really fun one. And it delves into. We sort of delve into Napoleon.
Rupert August is on that stream, isn't he?
He's on that stream, and what's important is I think the key for the film is are they going to show his relationship with the Jacobin? Because he was quite deep. He was very deep within the Jacobin
Yes.
ranks. Because of course, the Jacobin club had basically the military at that time were completely members were Jacobin themselves, and so and now the thing though is what's amazing is when Robespierre.
Can you do me a favor? Put that link in the private chat, and I'll stick it in the main chat.
Yeah, I will. I'll go find that. But what's amazing was that when Robespierre was executed and his brother followed the same fate, and because Napoleon was arrested himself, I believe it was in Marseille or Nice. He was arrested and he was in prison for about a week because he was part of that. He was part of course part of the Jacobin Club, and yeah. What was it? Was it Augustus Robespierre? And Octavian. No, I can't remember the name of the brother now. But he, Napoleon managed to sort of maneuver himself away from his relationships with the Robespierres and in a few letters. And he's an interesting character. I mean, what was interesting about him was that he developed a strong sort of belief of the political and the military can't be separated, and that's why a lot of what he couldn't get after that incident, he couldn't get a commission by like the French the Alps, the army, the French army in the Alps, and the Italian army, because initially because many generals at the time viewed him as being too much full of intrigue,
Which he was.
and which yeah, definitely.
He was much more of a
But
lefty than Napoleon apologists will try and pretend today. He was very much a lefty. He was not at all in favour of ending the terror.
No, he was only in favour of ending the terror when he was locked up, and he wrote a letter, so basically like a public letter saying, "Oh yes, if I knew that such tyranny was being brought out, I would have used the sword against my best friend who was younger, your brother of Robespierre. I would have cut him down where he stood." It's like, yeah, sure, Napoleon,
yeah, right,
sort of saving his own skin, yeah,
100%, yeah. I'm no fan of Napoleon, but yeah, absolutely. He was much more left wing, and one of the things that UAI and Rupert August bring out on that stream, which I hope you'll give us the link to, is how left wing Napoleon actually was. He was a very left wing dude. Mitch, hang on for a bit, mate, because we're just about to close up, and I'm just going to ask you in a minute if you have anything you would like to shill, like your Twitter, etc. Mitch has an excellent Twitter, by the way. Do go and check him out. But he will have to remind us what his Twitter handle is. But yeah. So yeah, Napoleon was much more left wing than apologists will say he was. So yeah, absolutely true. Mitch, anything you'd like to shill, mate?
I mean, if anyone wants to go on my Twitter, which is Anglo Gopnik, aside from that, I got nothing to shill. And I'm guessing AI's gone.
Hopefully he's going to come back because I want him to give me that link. But anyway, we'll see. Anglo Gopnik tonight, by the way, has a, I think I'm right in saying that's a Russian airborne outfit, yeah?
Yeah, it's...
VDV, isn't it? What they call themselves?
Yeah, the concept of VDV, which is... They're kind of, I mean, they've got a well-deserved reputation for a reason, and also their mottos are kind of some of the best you can come up with, to be honest. I mean, you've got one motto, which is Nikto kromě nás, which literally means nobody except us, as in we're the best and no one can match us. Or you've got Svayik nebrosayem, which actually means we do not leave behind our own, or we do not abandon our own.
Yeah.
So
these are the Russian versions of the paras, basically, and like parachute regiments always are pretty good, pretty hard troops, because jumping out of perfectly good aeroplanes is not a sane thing to do, to be honest. But, there you go.
Yeah, the thing about the Vediveva, I think we have the largest airborne force in the world of this, because there's at least 60,000 of them, and we're planning on enlarging it to like
Wow.
90,000.
Wow.
So, I mean, to
be fair, Britain has a parachute brigade, which used to be 3 battalions, but is now really only 2. But there we go. So, like, I don't know, less than 2,000 dudes anyway.
Yeah, I know, like the Russian Vediveva. I mean, because they've had a damn good reputation, and because the officers are so damn good that everyone loves to join the Vediveva, and also because the Russian army, like the Vediveva, as I said, they've got a damn good reputation, which is why there's 60,000 at least of them. And then they're planning on enlarging.
That's a big force. That's a big force.
Yeah, I mean,
of course, these days, most of the time when the paras do stuff, they use helicopters rather than parachuting, because that's less risky and more precise. But yeah. But yeah, do go and check out Mitch's Twitch. He's got a good Twitch. As Twitch, is it Twitch?
Twitter.
No, Twitter.
Well, it's called X these days, isn't it? Because Elon.
I've just ignored that, mate. But yeah, Mitch has a good Twitter. I quite often retweet his stuff. Thanks. AI Tory in the chat. If you want to go and see that stream with AI and Rupert August talking about the Napoleon trailer, it is on a channel called Plotlines. And it's a very good stream. I very much enjoyed it. Go and check it out. Michael K in the chat says, Soviets were pioneers on airborne troops. Yeah, they were. I watched quite a good modern Russian film that involved some like Soviet World War II paratroopers, and for the life of me, I can't remember what it was called now. I know it wasn't mostly about those dudes. It was mostly about like guys fighting behind the German lines in World War II. But eventually, a group of these Soviet paratroopers parachuted in and joined them, and they had to blow up some German trains and shit. And it was a pretty good film. I can't remember what it was called now, but it was not bad. AI Tory, thank you, Shy Tory. Thank you very much for joining us. Partisans, Michael. Yes, that's what it was. Soviet partisans behind the lines. AI Shy Tory, thank you very much for joining the stream this evening. Most kindly. Yeah. So, anything else we want to talk about, Mitch?
I mean, there's not really much. I mean, give him a short space. I mean, I don't know. I mean, apparently there was that. I don't know what you made of that. One Russian tank took on like an armored column of like 10.
I haven't seen that, Mitch. I haven't seen that. You put up about 3 or 4 videos when I was like busy setting this stuff up. I haven't watched any of it yet.
2 videos with technically the same video, just one got subtitles and the other one hasn't. So that's the only difference, really. I mean, literally that clip, it's a 10-minute clip of just like this one Russian tank crewed by a lot of Yakuts, who are kind of like Mongolians to your eyes, or like to anyone's eyes on this stream, really. Took on like 2 Ukrainian tanks alongside 8 armored vehicles and just completely wrecked them. So like everyone's just been talking about that today. Like the thing is, like, because there's a drone operating, and he's like, and you can hear like the Russian guys operating the drone and just got commentating about it. It's like the football commentary, and it's like half the words are either Nakoi or Yebat, which, if you know Russian, those are very profane Russian words.
You mean they're swearing like soldiers?
yeah, because to say F off in Russian, you have to say Idi Nakoi, which is quite a bit funny because Idi means go, and then Akoi means it's like a rude word for penis. So
Yep.
and then yebat literally means a verb, as in to f someone.
So they're swearing like soldiers. All soldiers swear. Man.
Yeah.
No
Well, I mean, Russians don't even need to get drunk to swear. Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like Anglos and
mate, the British Army doesn't need to get drunk to swear. Every fucking word is a fucking swear word. Trust me, or every other word anyway. Well, it used to be before, like it was feminized anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I always keep thinking to myself, perhaps Anglos and Slavs are more similar than previously thought, just because of how much we love to swear and drink. But that's just me.
Yep. Yeah, but honestly, mate, the British Army, you'd swear when you were sober all the time. Every word would be, "Oh, this fucking bastard, bloody," it's just the way you talk. And then you got to remember to stop it when you go home. There are chicks around and stuff. I'm not sure if it's still like that because the British Army has been so feminized now. But yeah. Someone is asking in the chat, Mitch, if you've ever seen White Tiger. I have. I know that movie.
I've seen it recommended on my YouTube feed, but I just never found the time to watch it. So
I've seen it. It's not bad. It's all right. It's not the best Russian tank film. The best Russian tank film is when these dudes get captured and they are told to train some Germans. And they're given a newly captured T-34-85 with an 85mm gun on it.
Is this film called T-34?
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, and they escape, and of course they end up fighting the Germans with this tank. That's the best Russian tank film, in my view. I mean, silly. It's silly in some places, of course it is, but it's not a bad film. It's quite good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how best to explain, but Russian films, especially to do with war, they tell it in a different way to how we would do it in the West. So
yeah.
I mean,
they're much more serious than we would be these days about World War II.
Yeah, because I mean, it takes different tone in Russia. I mean, for one, it's literally like because of course Christmas is very much celebrated, but it's on the 7th of January for them. And you've also got VE Day, where they won against the Germans. That is like very like every Russian kid dresses in uniform, in Soviet uniform, like for example, like everyone's celebrating. Like, and if you're seen as not celebrating it or commemorating it, would be the better word. You're pretty much treated like an outcast because it was a very dark time for Russia, and them winning.
Well, they lost millions of dead in World War II, so
Yeah, like 28 million, which which that's the thing. I mean, and not to mention the Germans were literally within eyesight of that of spires of the Kremlin, I believe, or was it St. Basil's Cathedral? Can't remember.
Yeah, they were in December 1941. Yeah, they were. It was like Russia in World War II. Absolutely, it was the Soviets who tore the heart out of the German army in World War II. It wasn't the Brits and Americans, it was the Soviets. They would have found it much more difficult without British and American aid, but it was still the Soviets that did it. You got to also remember that in Russia, even in Stalin's era, that was the Great Patriotic War. It wasn't anything to do with communism. It was framed by Stalin, who was very clever at this stuff, as the Great Patriotic War. He brought back loads of traditional Russian stuff during the war. For example.
Yeah, was it Radlib? I think it was Radlib who once argued that basically, were it not for Stalin, the Soviet Union would have collapsed much sooner because Lenin had this stupid idea of like just penalizing the Russians and doing this affirmative action stuff like what we have today.
Yeah.
And then, Radlib argues that were it not for Stalin and Trotsky got in, then the Soviet Union would have collapsed before World War II because the Russians would have just got fed up with the whole affirmative action where all the money produced by Russia would just go towards like lavished upon like Central Asians or upon the Caucasians or a lot of these groups, or you know, it's like the Soviet Union actually did do that. To be fair, after Stalin, like you'd have Western Ukraine, for example, got given a lot of money, or the Baltic states, and after the Soviet Union fell, they just turned into the most bitter anti-Russian states, despite being ones who actually benefited more from the Soviet Union financially than, let's say, average Russian from Novosibirsk.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean,
so
look, the point I would say is that when you watch modern Russian films about World War II, they're not going on about the Communist Party at all, basically. They're talking about Russians defending Russia, which is fair enough, you know, as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned.
the only controversial Russian war film for me is that one, Battle of Sevastopol with a female sniper. It's like girl power, but like it wasn't.
Yeah.
It's not as
Yeah.
obnoxious as our films could be about it, but I just have really unease about it because I just think I feel like I'm supporting some sort of like inverted Russian feminism, like not Pussy Riot kind of feminism, but some
Yeah, I
sort of
agree.
like,
I agree.
yeah.
I mean, Ashen Duke in the chat is saying Ninth Company is a good Russian film, but Soviet-Afghan War, yeah, it is. It's actually a really good film. It's about this group of dudes who are taking in for national service, and they're in the Russian. I think they're VDV guys, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the
Mitch?
Tanyashkas.
Yeah. They're supposed to be parachute regiment guys in the Russian army, and it's a good movie. And they fight in Afghanistan, and most of the stuff they do there. If you were an American or a Brit who fought in Afghan, you'd say, yeah, we did that kind of shit too. It's pretty much the same. And it's a pretty good film.
Yeah, another film I'd show is a film called Voina, which is like about, you have this like British fella who and this Russian fella. They could both get released by the same Chechen warlord, and the guy says to the Brit, "Okay, bring me like I can't remember, it's like $1 million in cash or something to him," and he gets this Russian guy who helps him to go over to Chechnya and free the Englishman's fiance.
Oh yeah, no, that's a really good film. You put that in the Discord and I watched it. Yeah, that's really excellent. Really good film.
Yeah, I mean, I got recommended it by a Dutch blog who I follow on Telegram, and then I watched